Today is Monday, October the 2nd. This Committee of Finance, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion is called to order. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Griffin.
Here.
McCormick.
Present.
Bishop.
Here.
Gadwell. Thurston. Casey. Valencia.
Present.
Santana.
Present.
Spencer. Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum.
Thank you, and please mark Councilman Casey as an excused absence. Okay. All right. Let's go to our agenda, and we have a couple that's in place. But first of all, we have guests from Sci-Fi. Are they here today? So please come to the table. We always try to do guests first, and then Ms. Jimenez, do we have any other guests besides Sci-Fi today? Any other guests? Okay, thank you. So, we'll hear this piece first. This is ordinance number 583-2023 by council members Casey, Hairston, and Griffin by departmental request. An emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Finance to enter into a new development agreement with Sci-Fi Networks, Cleveland LLC, or its designees, successors, and assignees to install, operate, and maintain a city-wide fiber optic network system in the city's public right-of-way for a period of 30 years with 5 10-year automatic renewals. I believe we have Special Assistant Davis that's going to prevent, or is it going to be Chiefs?
It'll be me. Through
Okay,
there.
thank you.
The smart guy.
Nah.
He's the man with the answers.
Through the chair to the committee, thank you very much for having us here today. We're grateful for the opportunity to present before the Finance Committee, and we're grateful to have gone this far with City Council. This has been a journey through conceptual phase, an engineering analysis phase, a legal review phase, a presentation in July, a presentation last week, and we're just delighted to be here before you in our home stretch. I'll be brief. Joining me today is Scott Bradshaw, the president of Sci-Fi Networks. Of course, we all know Chief Tiwin, Chief Avanama, COO and CFO. What we're talking about is a universal fiber optic world-class underground telecommunications network to be used for the internet or anything else for every home and business in the city of Cleveland, built and maintained using union labor with no public financing involved. This is a new competitor in the marketplace, and we're delighted to invite them to spend their money here in Cleveland. There's a few subjects I'm going to highlight just so we're all clear. First of all, this council, with the leadership of Councilman Casey and Council President Griffin, provided final approval last week to raise the floor for broadband connectivity here in Cleveland through that Digital C proposal. We committed collectively and together to our residents that all people of Cleveland should be able to access good speeds at an affordable price with a laser focus on affordability. About a third of Clevelanders don't have any broadband at home. About a third of Clevelanders live below the poverty line. So we had to focus on that affordability aspect, and the legislation we put into place together will do just that. That's a tremendous accomplishment. It's not the end of the story, which is why we're here today. That raised the floor for the minimums here in Cleveland, but we have to raise the ceilings for the maximum potential here. We can make sure our market rate customers get, if they so choose, the top and fastest, best in market service, not just downtown, but anywhere in the city. We have to make sure that businesses of today and of the future can open up shop here in Cleveland and compete globally with the highest internet speeds commercially available. Again, not downtown, or not only downtown, but across the whole city. And we have to ensure that our residents have the most choice they can get when it comes to utilities like the internet, because I'm going to say it, choice means price, choice means customer service, and choice means speed. We want those to all be at their maximum here in the city. So when we talk about a universal fiber optic network here in Cleveland, that's what we mean. Business opportunities, equity across the city, and choice. So second, I showed these slides at the last hearing last week, but I want to emphasize what it is we're talking about when we talk about a universal network. You can see on this data, this map produced by the FCC, data is about 2 years old, but the map doesn't get clearer than this. Shaded in is where fiber optic connectivity at gigabit speeds is available. Unshaded is where it's not. I won't comment on exactly the reasoning behind why certain parts of the city don't have any fiber optic access at gigabit speeds, but the pattern is certainly clear. It's everywhere, but it's the east side. The east side has been predominantly disinvested by the private sector here in Cleveland. It's stark. I'll also reflect, of course, a great deal of the city doesn't have it as well. Near West Side, Old Brooklyn, south of Cams. I live in Tremont next to a CMHA property. My neighbors don't have it, I don't have it. So it's a universal problem, but the moral of the story is when parts of Cleveland get excluded, it drags the entire city down. When one of us is lacking, all of us are lacking, and this map demonstrates that today. I'll pause real quick because this is more how the FCC displays its data today. I find this really hard to understand, these hexagons. I had to make this by hand, basically. Just in case you see this again, this is what the FCC's most latest data looks like. This is what the situation in our suburbs looks like. If Cleveland were to take the Sci-Fi offer before us today, that whole city would be shaded in, and you can see we'll be leaving with love and respect, our suburban partners in the dust. From a competitive perspective, from a where are you moving in this region perspective, that's certainly part of the conversation. And of course, I showed this to the Utilities Committee last week as well, but only certain areas across our region have universal fiber optic connectivity. Cincinnati is our top contender here, with 70% of Cincinnati having fiber infrastructure that provides gigabit speeds. About half of Indianapolis has that. Pittsburgh has good infrastructure but low quality speeds. Columbus does not have much fiber infrastructure, but I'll be honest, Columbus will get its act together. Only about 22% of Columbus has fiber access, but they have more ISPs competing for their individual residents' business, and they're going to get there one day. And the question is, will we beat them to it? Can we solidify the lead that we have today over Columbus, or are we going to let them pass us by? And I'll just say, because the history here always stands out to me, one part of Cleveland's story is cable television. The last big infrastructure development here was cable TV when they built the cable lines that a lot of us have our internet from today. That was for TV back in the day. You may recall that Cleveland was the last major city in Ohio to have cable TV. We were last. Cincinnati got it in 74, Columbus in 77. No, sorry, Cincinnati in 81, Columbus in 77. Our suburbs in 74, we didn't get it till 87, about 15 years after our suburbs. For a lot of reasons, politics, financing, but the public sector went past us, and that's not going to happen again. We can't be last again. Here's the note I'm going to end on. The agreement between Sci-Fi and the city, for which we're asking for legislative authorization to sign, lays out a process behind a permitting process. It does not approve a single permit in advance. It does not pre-approve anything. The gist is that Sci-Fi here could apply for any of these permits today, and we'd be obligated to process them without an agreement. This does not allow Sci-Fi to build their network here. If Sci-Fi, so long as Sci-Fi complied with the same rules of the road that apply to all other utility companies, telecom companies, et cetera, you can apply for a permit and build in our right-of-way. What Sci-Fi is doing here is asking for the process to run a little smoother, namely providing a funding source for us here at the city to hire our own contractors who will focus on their projects. That includes contractors for permitting. There's going to be an awful lot of paperwork. Contractors for inspections, arborist services, engineering services, and the other things that may come up as we engage here. We'll do RFPs for all those contractors. Those contracts will come back before this council, as any contract would. But the gist is Sci-Fi, this is not an agreement to let Sci-Fi build. This is an agreement to make sure that that process works well. And of course, Sci-Fi is not doing this out of the goodness of their heart. They're doing this because, good corporate citizenship, acknowledged, of course, but the sooner this project is done, the more money they make off of it, and the more our residents can benefit. Our interests are fundamentally aligned here. From our perspective, we're obligated to process their permits in any case, so we want to make sure we can do so in an efficient and effective manner. That's the heart of it. They can already build here, but we're going to make that process as smooth as possible. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Bradshaw for his presentation. Oh, let me switch that.
Do we need to switch over to? Yep, there we go. Good afternoon, council members, president, council members. You may have not have already seen the presentations I've already delivered twice in regards to the previous committees. There will be a lot of regurgitation here. I do wish to keep the information at a very high level, but with saying that, I'm also very happy to go as granular as you wish to go, just being also mindful of your time, even though obviously this is it's a big decision on both parties' side. So with that said, I just have a select few slides, and those slides really will just guide you through who my organisation is, what the offering is on the table, the detailed structure behind that, and really what we are seeing it means to cities across the country that we're already investing this as in the US. So Sci-Fi Networks, we're a developer, we're an infrastructure developer. We identify communities that are significantly underserved with fibre optic infrastructure. One where we feel through a large scale investment and through an open access nature that I'll come on to on our fibre optic infrastructures, we can actually recreate the economic platform, where we can certainly create a next generational platform through fibre optic infrastructure, and one that really removes the digital divide. So to achieve that, that's not cheap. To build that on a scale of really Cleveland of size, we need a large-scale backing to support that. So we're backed by one of the largest pension funds in the world, an organization called APG. Right now, they manage just over $600 billion in assets through their pension funds. Through that, it enables us, through that funding mechanism, we're actually able to build citywide open access networks. May I just, because I want to make sure I'm cutting all this, I do apologise. And then just to give you a scale, this isn't too good to be true. What you're about to hear is an incredible offering, but it is not a too good to be true offering. The reason I say we have already allocated $1.5 billion. We've already committed that, we're already deploying that. We just want you to be the beneficiaries of this offering we're bringing to the table for you. So as I say, Sci-Fi has a brand, and that brand is what we call Fiber City. And through the Fiber City brand is where we actually invest all of our money. And that Fiber City is a true open access network throughout the entire city, both open fiber and the electronics that reside upon there. The reason we actually go down the open access route is that we are not an ISP. We do not deal directly with the public. What we are really creating is a very fast multi-lane highway that any ISP, let's call it a vehicle, can just ride upon and deliver services to businesses, to home, to churches, community centres. So I'm really putting the infrastructure in that you do not have, and as Austin showed you, and I will also reiterate, you don't have that throughout, sadly, on a ubiquitous basis in the city. Every single resident and business, every single occupier of a premise has access to the same internet service providers. There is no social economic segmentation. We are not dissecting your city. We're giving everyone the same access with the same products, the same price points, irrespective of where the individual lives. So what we're really doing is creating a citywide competitive platform to compete against your existing incumbents. No one has to use this network. This is a private risk of my organisation. There are no taxpayer dollars being used here. There is no municipal subsidy being requested. We have undertaken the analysis. We've done the research. We've been looking at the actual city for the last part of 18 months now, which is why we chose to enter into your RFP, RFI process and present this model and see if it'd be something you'd like to welcome to your constituents. The way the business model works is Sci-Fi pays for everything. We pay for the infrastructure, we pay for electronics, we appoint an independent operator, they manage the network. And what we then do is wholesale access to any type of service provider wants to use it. That may be a gigabit broadband network, it could be telephone, could be TV, could be home security, could be telemedicine, we don't mind. We're just creating that infrastructure and we are wholesaling that out to the private industry to use that, to provide those services, which is why I don't need municipal taxpayer dollars. It's privately funded, it's privately amortized over a long period of time, which is why I'm asking really for those 30 years to begin with as a minimum, because when we're looking at investment here, well over $500 million, I can't pay for that in a few years' time. That takes a very long time. It takes decades to amortize that type of structure. As well as actually providing every person with open access, choice of any ISP they wish to receive services from. And by the way, our services day one start at 1 gig symmetrical. Symmetrical being the same download speed as the same upload speed. So even though our networks day one are 1 gig straight off the bat, the network itself, we're going to reposition you, put you on a pedestal. The network day one to the home is 10 gigabit per second ready. We're going to hopefully recreate the economic platform and start to attract people to come into the city as well as retain those individuals. But what we are very aware of is even though the open access network is going to serve everybody, There are individuals that do not have much disposable income every month, just don't have a lot of money put to one side. So what Sci-Fi does is actually, if you're our philanthropic approach, is we've created what's called Fiber City Aid. And the aid is very much identifying and working with disadvantaged families to where we actually subsidize the retail rate of the actual standard retail rates that the ISPs are charging the actual community. So by subsidising that, it enables us to create a mechanism which becomes more affordable. Now, as I mentioned, that's a private philanthropic approach. There is a government programme that everybody is accessible to as long as they qualify under the set parameters. If you were to combine the Fiber City Aid programme with the FCC, what's called the ACP programme, the Affordable Connectivity Programme, those people that qualify for both of those programs will actually be looking to receive symmetrical gigabit broadband over our fibre for near zero cost a month. We're just looking to change the landscape for you on that. Education is a big thing. So it can be as great as it wants to be, it can go as fast as it wants to be, and it can attract all the very clever widgets of the IoT world that we're now entering into. But education for us and the awareness, the community's awareness this network exists is fundamental. So every single week during the project, Sci-Fi and Aladdin roll out free food trucks. Tacos have been the biggest success today across the country. So I say every single week in the active neighborhood that we are constructing, we pay for them, we roll out those food trucks, we invite the neighborhood to come and get some free food, talk to each other about who we are. You get to meet the actual team members of actually the Fiber City. You also get to meet the ISPs using the network. So it's a great Q&A session of why should I choose you over my current provider? What makes you so different? Is it price? Is it the customer service? Is it the product? Because they don't have to change. So it's about the ISPs on my network needing to win their business because it's not taxpayer funded. And that's throughout the entire program of actually when we through the full construction program. Right now, as I mentioned, this isn't too good to be true. I'm already doing this. You're coming in a position which is a far more advantageous one because we have many other cities before you where we've learned many things from construction techniques, language, and how we actually roll these investments out. So to date, since 2019, we now have 42 cities under either agreement, investment, or active construction with active residential and businesses enjoying the services from multiple ISPs they get to choose from. So those 42 cities are across 11 different states. Just those alone, once they're fully constructed, will be serving over almost 2.5 million premises. They are all the same model that's being presented to you today. They are true open access. All of them are also 100% private investment, no municipal subsidy, no taxpayer dollars, and it is zero cost to the city. This is the same map, but just differently presented that Austin was presenting a second ago. This is why we're knocking on your door. You are very, if not significantly, underserved. There are large-scale pockets of your city where there is no fibre investment leading those neighbourhoods into the next generation. That fibre optic infrastructure that is not there is not supporting the kids of today and through to those generations yet to be born. And we want to help you. We want to pay for that. We want to put that entire fibre throughout your entire city. To put it into magnitude, what that really means is almost 2/3 of your residents. That's one of the largest numbers around in the States. 2/3 of residents, 2/3 of businesses do not have access to fibre passing actually their premises. We do not work on neighborhood by neighborhood basis. We do not decide whether that neighborhood is good and then we decide to move on to another one. The reason we choose one of the largest pension funds in the world, we pre-allocate the entire capital cost. So we don't say, oh, the east side did well and let's build the next neighborhood. We say, here's the hundreds of millions of dollars, let's lock it in place, and it gives you comfort that the project does not run out of money. All neighborhoods are going to be served. That's key for us as an organization because it allows us to create that ubiquitous footprint that any ISP can then provide the same service to any premise. They don't have to change their messaging, which allows any neighborhood to get the same services from those same set ISPs. We're actually going to be using a Midwest contractor, an organization called Always Underground. They are a women-owned based business. They are very much IBEW staffed. They've been working extensively in the background with various unions to support in readiness for this project. So we're going to be supporting the local labour and construction within the city. They are Gold Shovel certified. That's a very difficult certification of underground construction to come across. And they're already building 10 million feet for my organization to date. So really, they're going to be applying the same methods and lessons learned they have done it in Illinois, in Wisconsin, and they're going to be bringing it to Ohio, though they already have extensive experience in the state of Ohio. The construction techniques, there are two different techniques. One was what we call trenchless bore, and the second is a narrow open trench. So the trenchless bore, and you'll have to excuse the pictures because I can't really show anything because it's underground. You have a machine that's a drilling rig. That drilling rig could actually drill a 4-inch conduit, a 3-inch conduit, or a 2-inch conduit. They just drill it underground, going past all the premises, and come out at every certain location, then take our fiber optic cable to a premise. Nobody has to purchase the actual fiber optic service from any ISP day one, but what we will do to support readiness for the future is take our small fiber duct and locate it outside of those premises, so we're only having to pull a permit once. And that's a really good point to make. The agreement we have presented before you is not a permit. It is a framework of understanding on a non-exclusive basis of access to your right-of-way. And again, as Austin was saying earlier, we could turn up and pull a permit. That's on my agenda with how we would like to build the city. The reason we are before you today is we want your input. You know your community better than we ever always will. We want your ideas, staff's ideas. Sci-Fi is going to pay for it irrespective, so why not let us build it for the future generation? So we would like to welcome your ideas. We want you to have control. This approach gives you more control than you would under a standard permit. We want to be accountable to that control. So this is why we are, I say, in front of you today, otherwise we just turn up and pull a permit. So one is trenchless, goes underground past all the premises, as you can see on the top. And then when we use a very narrow trench, we actually, as you can see on the left-hand side, it's almost like a sprinkler system installation. We build the trench, we lay our conduit, we reseed where we're reseeding or matting, and then shortly after, as you can see on the right-hand side, the actual seeding comes back and it looks like the sod is how we left it. If we are in intersections, if it's actually concrete slabs, it would be the top one. We do not cut them, we just go directly underneath them. So the methods we're actually introducing here, these are not new methods. These are already employed within your city. I'm just bringing to your attention how we're going to do the same thing that already exists here today. Just want to make you aware. So through that investment, what we're looking for, we'd like to invest well over $500 million within the city. We really want to help support removing the digital divide, and that would be through our Fiber City investment. You would be one of the fastest in the country. It's a large network. It's over 2,600 miles. That is going to foster innovation, both with connecting municipal buildings, connecting businesses and homes, but also getting you ready for IoT devices, looking at water metering, connecting kiosks for interactive public Wi-Fi hotspots, parking meters, gunshot detection, camera systems for traffic, for the actual first responders, many, many things we could talk all day about here. It's going to give people choice. They do not have to use it. I'm going to bring brand new choice for the people. Stick with the same ISP or come and use one of the different ones that are already on our network. That is entirely up to themselves. I just want to give people competition. Better competition, better service at better price points. It is local employment, as I mentioned before, talking with the actual labour unions. And once again, just to reiterate, it is at zero cost to the city. All costs incurred by the city, from staff time to support that, we are paying for that. We are going above and beyond whatever the cost is. If we're actually putting set money to one side in an account, if your time exceeds that amount, we will replenish that account with the amount that you've exerted and keep it topped at that level for you. Just trying to be the best neighbour we can in your neighbourhood, within your right of way. I do welcome any comments you may have on that information.
Did any of the chiefs, directors want to say anything? Okay. This falls in one of those categories. Is this too good to be true?
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm thinking.
And this falls in, sorry, I didn't have the mic on. This falls in that category of is this too good to be true, but very impressive on a lot of different things. I just want to make sure that I understand as far as the taxpayers. I know that, are there any fail-safes? Are there anything that we have, or will this be done in the contractual side, that if this company doesn't deliver to the level that they are projecting, that we will be able to stop it? Is there like a phase-in process? I heard that he did not want to go neighborhood by neighborhood, but I'm just trying to understand how this is going to be sequenced.
Through the chair to the chair, and I'll deliver this to Chief Teelan in a second too to talk about how permitting works. Just there's a lot of options we have here about how and when. I think to your first point, is it too good to be true? It's a reasonable question. We ask the same on our end, of course. And the gist is the private sector has skipped Cleveland for so long that now all of a sudden there is a real opportunity for a business here to do, I think, something that Sci-Fi is doing. There's so limited infrastructure investment from the private sector in Cleveland that, we're a market opportunity. And over a long enough period of time, you'll make money on us. That's, we appreciate the equity element here, no doubt about it. But Cleveland is a city where you can do business and make money if you come here, work with our residents. So I think that's the perspective. Long enough period of time, you'll definitely make money in our city.
Okay.
To the permitting process, it's, there needs to be, a sequence. So part of the timing here is we're contemplating a 2-year design and procurement phase before a 5-year build-out phase for this project. So there's no digging happening tomorrow, or if we're lucky enough to have this agreement signed. It's worth reflecting that Sci-Fi Networks has to buy all that equipment, all of the fiber itself, organize all the labor necessary for this project, and then we need to, on our end, get our RFPs out for the contractors to process all this paperwork and everything else. And in that time, we'll be able to hack out, or at least to a reasonable extent, when, who's going, when, where, what. As the project is under construction, we'll also have inspectors at the sites to make sure things are going as anticipated by the permits themselves. If things are not going well, the inspectors can shut it down. Permits can be rejected because of the design methods are not working or things like that. So we have some fail-safes put into place through that end. I think, Chief Teelan, any thoughts beyond that?
Thank you. Bonnie Teelan, Chief Operating Officer. One thing that I think is important, before this even came to any of the committees, there was a lot of hours spent with our MOCAP group as far as the details of how this would be constructed. The Sci-Fi came to us with a plan of what they did in other communities, and our engineers addressed those specifically and said that might not work here in Cleveland. And they were very adamant, they were very agreeable to changing how they normally construct some of this fiber optic conduits. By way of example, in a lot of communities, they put the trench in the street. That doesn't work for us because we don't have a combination curb and gutter. So we recommended that it goes in the tree lawn. Putting conduit in the tree lawn was concerning to our urban forester. So they agreed to do borings underneath all the trees, underneath all the drive aprons, any sidewalks that they encounter, even at intersections. So there's going to be a lot of directional boring, and you saw the equipment there that basically is a small opening trench, and they push the conduit through so that you won't have that open trench all along the tree lawn. So there's a lot of work that has gone into it to date before it was even brought to the committee on the engineering side, and we developed construction standards that were acceptable to our engineers as well as acceptable to the Sci-Fi contractors.
And if I'm not mistaken, there are examples of where we've done boring. Most notably, I could think about Spring Avenue, when I know that there were borings that were actually made. So we actually have done that practice in Cleveland before?
We have. I can't even tell you all the different locations.
Okay. All right. Is my understanding that over on Spring Avenue and a couple of other places where we've actually had boring, where they actually use this kind of technology? And maybe Chief Teelan could give you a couple of locations, so because that was one of the things that I was going to mention is if a councilperson really wanted to see how this operated, where and how can they look and see how this actually operates, or see a video of it or anything else like that? Because I heard my colleague Councilwoman Spencer's line of questioning last week about if this might potentially create problems around urban forestry and other things like that. I do want to state that Opportunity Corridor, for example, and most of the newer streets have corridors that can actually lay that. So have you given a map, or are you going to coordinate those logistics with them so that they can avoid boring where there are potential bays that just need to have the fiber optics lined?
Through the chair, to the chair, absolutely. It's our intent. That's exactly what that 2-year design and procurement process is for. We get all of our maps, they get their maps. We start calling 811. We figure out how things need to go. But yeah, that conduit is a godsend. And if it works, it works. And if it doesn't, we'll figure out something else.
Right. Chief?
My grasshopper has been trained appropriately, so
Gotcha.
he knows the procedure, that there's a lot of preliminary work that goes in before a shovel even hits the ground.
And watching last week's hearing, as well as looking at some background, if it's my understanding, the only comparable city is Arlington, Texas. So where else have we had comparable type of cities? Because, and also doing some of my background, there are a couple of other smaller cities where they terminated the contract. What might have caused some of these smaller cities to terminate the contract? And then can you give us some examples of comparable cities that have this large build out, or is this the first that Cleveland is jumping into on this?
I'll turn it over to Mr. Bradshaw in a second, but I think Arlington was one of our biggest touch points during the development phase of this agreement when we were doing our due diligence. Because they're so big, they're about 400,000 people, seem like a comparable city at first blush, but their construction methods are totally different than ours. It turned out that Arlington, Texas has different streets than we do for all the reasons that Chief Tewan laid out. I know Kenosha, Wisconsin has been a major exemplar for us. It's the same general contractor in Kenosha as it would be here. And it's those general contractors with their, each of the general contractors, of course, will have their own labor sourcing methods and their own construction methods that makes this more comparable to those projects as compared to an Arlington project. Scott, any thoughts beyond that?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely correct. So with respect to size, Arlington would be respectively of a similar size to yourselves. You are a large real estate. There's no about give or take about 13.7 million feet of construction. So what we can really look at is closer to home, which are of a smaller size. Rockford, Illinois, that is about 70 to 80,000 premises. So in itself, that's not a small community. You don't just go and build 70 to 80,000 premises, not population premises itself, almost a few 100,000 people. So it's the Midwest techniques. They are very similar, and we are bringing them here. So what we're doing is no different in regards to what we're doing there is what we're doing no different here. What other people are already doing here is no different to what's already happening in Illinois and Wisconsin. With respect to the agreements, we do not have any contracts that are cancelled. So I don't understand that information. So all of our agreements are active. All the ones we have funded are in regards to construction, are in construction or stopped maybe for the weather season. But we don't actually have any agreements which have been terminated. So I'm not unsure.
So there have been no agreements that's been terminated, or no lawsuits or anything else that
we
you
don't
guys
have any agreements that have been terminated with any city.
Okay, and no legal challenges with other cities right now or anything else like
No
that?
with cities for sure, no. Correct. So I don't know where that's coming from. I cannot. I'd love to answer a question, but I don't know the answer to that question.
Okay,
Can I ask a point, Mr. President?
on that point, Councilman?
Yeah, I always forget this young man's name.
Mr.
Austin.
Davis.
When who project managed this piece?
Through the chair, me. It was mostly me. A lot of collaboration with Chief Tewan's shop up and down the permitting processes, urban forestry, law, finance, but largely me.
So you have a paper on this piece right here. You look at lessons learned where this gentleman just mentioned he was in other cities. You took a look at the risk or the threats and you interviewed some people, but you don't bring it to council. So can I have a copy of it? Can I see? Can I study it at least? I mean, I like what you narrated, but the deal seems, it's too good to be true. So I need to see something, trust, but verify.
Can you provide that information?
Through the chair, absolutely. We'll provide all the information we have, some of our interviews with other cities. Yeah, absolutely. Happy to.
And Councilman, did you want to go on the list for this as well?
Yeah, put me on the list.
Because you want to go do, okay. And
May I?
I'm going to ask if the policy team, I know that there was something also that was given out. Could we make sure that Councilman Conwell gets anything in case he wants to prepare for a couple of his questions? All right, please proceed.
So through the chair, I understand why you may feel it's too good to be true. And if I was knocking on the door for the very first time in the US and bringing this to your attention, I would, I would most certainly understand where that comment was coming from, which is why this is why I have this map. You're not number one. You'll be number 43. We have already deployed over $1.5 billion of private investment, the exact same model, multiple cities. Multiple cities are under construction, multiple cities are live with residents, with businesses, and those residents and businesses right now receiving broadband services from multiple ISPs on the same network. This isn't too good to be true. You're not number one. You're just going to be number 43. You're just going to be probably one of the biggest. That's the difference.
All right, I got Councilman McCormick and Councilman Conwell on the list so far, and Councilwoman Spencer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate that. And welcome today, this afternoon. I've just got several questions, but I think just getting to the point of too good to be true. My assumption here is that you've got a business plan to make money on these systems. Is that correct? Through the chair? Right. So I mean, that to me actually makes me feel better, because you are not presenting this as charity. You will make money on this, and that's private industry in America. So as long as the city gets what it needs out of it, I mean, that's how these things work. Chairman, to Mr. Davis or whoever can answer, and this is just for my edification. So when we think about Digital C that we just passed the other day, that's a wireless technology. How, if at all, does that interact with this type of fiber?
Through the chair to the council person, generally speaking, not at all at this point. Generally, Digital C needs to run their radio towers off of fiber. More fiber in the community means you could have more radio towers in a general sense, but at this point, they're
It's a wireless-based technology.
Exactly.
Right. So knowing what we know now with this, I mean, does the approach of wireless still make sense to the administration?
Through the chair, it does. I mean, $18 a month makes sense to the administration. Is
Okay.
where we came
I
from.
mean, $18 a month that works.
That works, yeah.
Right, that's the big part of that. Because I went over to T-Mobile Wireless and
That's
paid
right.
less, and it shut down. So I think we talked about that last week, but I just want to emphasize that. So, thank you. And so, as was noted below, this is for any provider. Is that correct? Through the chair, this is simply the backbone.
That's right.
Yeah, through the chair, this is available to any internet service provider. It could be both the local incumbents, we do not honestly mind. Our goal really is to attract as many different ones, and that's a key thing to remember, that under the business model, I have to achieve a set amount of people, businesses or residents, buying service from the internet service providers on the network. If they don't, then we can't generate revenue. If I can't generate revenue, I can't pay the bills.
Yep.
That's just simple math.
okay.
So the key thing is dilution of risk. Your dilution of risk is you're not paying for anything. My dilution of risk is having as many ISPs on the network as I can, because that number I need to achieve is spread across multiple people rather than just one ISP. So it gives you comfort that I'm not creating a new monopoly. I want to dilute my risk by having as many different ISPs that any person can choose from, because not too many eggs in one basket.
Thank you. And on that point, too, so you amortize it over 30 years, you said, is the agreement with the city of Cleveland, is that correct?
It's actually, so through Chase, it's longer than that, but that's where we start. And the reason
Okay.
we do that is institutional investment. The institutional investment starts at a 30.
At 30, right.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Where's your company located? Through
So
the chair?
in New Jersey, the main offices are New Jersey and in California.
California, got it, okay. Alrighty. And then I've got actually a question, Mr. Chairman. If I can call the head of urban forestry to the table, if you don't mind. Jennifer, hi, how are you? So we have a phenomenal head of urban forestry who is one of the biggest tree advocates you will find in the city of Cleveland. She's brilliant. She is lots of praise to throw on her. This is great. I'm fully supportive of this plan. And this is not directed at your company. I have been told by the city before that there are tree preservation plans in place, and contractors have gone out there and whacked entire corridors of my neighborhoods, cutting down hundreds of mature trees. I'm thinking Fulton Road. where the city did its job and Ms. Kipp did her job and all that, but then the contractor didn't listen to anybody, and at the end of the day, they cut a trench in one of my corridors, slaughtering many trees, and my residents that's one of the angriest I've ever seen my residents. So my question directly is, how can we be sure in Cleveland that is desperately trying a joint effort by council, the administration, to reforest our city, that even the protective measures of trenching or boring will protect our tree canopy in Cleveland? This is critically important, I know, to me and to many folks in the city. So if I would ask Mr. Chairman, if I may, our urban forester, has forestry been included in these conversations, and do you have assurances that our canopy will be protected?
Direct, Commissioner?
Yes, thank you. Through the chair to the councilman, thank you for your questions. So yes, I was involved very early on. It might have been February of this year, where I had initial conversations with Chief Tewan and also Austin, and then follow-up additional meetings in person to review the language. That was maybe about March of this year that I sat down with Austin. We had a few subsequent conversations over the summer, and then with some follow-up just recently to make sure that, everyone here at the table was getting the same information, from me. And absolutely, to your point, when I first heard that this is coming, I thought this is great, but then also was like, oh no. So all of those concerns have been put into the proposal. My recommendations are in the proposal. So I feel confident sitting here today
Thank you.
our tree canopy will be protected during this implementation.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And Chief Tewan, I feel very confident in your head of urban forestry. But I'd like to ask directly to you, how do we ensure that her work does not go in vain, and that the city, along in a cooperative manner with the company, ensures that the contractors day-to-day on the ground are following those guidelines?
And through the chair to the councilperson, you're absolutely right. The proof is when it actually out in the field and how it's implemented. We're proposing to have full-time staff members that are being hired as a consultant and paid for by Sci-Fi under our direction, under the city's direction, to be in the field at all times whenever construction is happening. Also employing an arborist through that consultant that will be able to answer any questions. But being out in the field on a daily basis, basically walking alongside the trenching machine as it's going along, writing daily reports will be the responsibility through our MOCAP group to have a consultant out there and actually observing what's happening out in the field.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And that's been successful in the past. There have been other companies who have not done great work, but when Ms. Kipp's team were empowered to provide that proper oversight, things changed quickly. So that's good to hear. And once again, we can do all the right things at the table, but if the folks on the ground actually doing the construction aren't following those, then it really is all in vain. So I really appreciate that. But to Mr. Davis and the team, I'm sorry, tell me your name one more time.
Scott Bradshaw.
Bradshaw. And to Mr. Bradshaw, this seems like a great opportunity for the city of Cleveland. Excited to partner with Sci-Fi. And again, to the too good to be true, you will make money on this, right? So that's the private company has, as a private developer does, as an auto company does, as any company does, there's a business model there. Not to say you're not concerned with equity and social impact. I'm just saying that, to me, that actually assures me more because there's a business model behind it that doesn't present itself as too good to be true.
Yeah, and through the chair, if I may, and that's really a good segue in that I need to make money,
right,
because obviously the bills need to be paid.
Making money is good.
But the key thing is, it doesn't matter how good the network is. It doesn't matter how fast services are and all the bells and whistles that come with it. What we're really looking for is the ISPs to provide great customer service, very customer-centric ISPs, and then low-cost products or more affordable products. And the reason being, no matter how good it is, if people cannot afford the service, they just won't buy it. That's just a matter of fact. So therefore, the ISPs that come on need to be very competitive. And that ultimately means them being of a lower price or a comparable price to an inferior product that the incumbents are currently providing now. And that's what gives you comfort over the long period of time that self-governance in the market will keep those rates low rather than someone trying to dictate those rates themselves.
I appreciate that. And Mr. Chairman, I'll just wrap up by saying I'm really excited to add additional competition in the ISP market in Cleveland. That I hear about that in my block clubs. People will say, Councilman, can I get something beyond company X? I won't fill in the X. And I'm just kind of like, no, we don't, in our neighborhood, we don't have that other company here. They won't come to our neighborhood. And so you're kind of stuck with what you got. So I think that the ISP competition was going to be really good for the city of Cleveland, for consumers, for reliability, for all of that. So I'm really excited to work with your company. And then Chief, please we got to keep Ms. Kipp empowered in this process so that her team has, hands on, eyes on, whatever is happening. Because we can plant new trees, but if we cut down the big ones, we're never going to hit that 30%. So thank you so much. Really excited about this project. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Councilman Kevin Conwell.
Thank you very, very much. What made you, through the chair, pick Cleveland? I'm here. I'm excited about it, but I just have some questions. So what made you pick Cleveland?
So when we're looking, through the chair, when we're looking at a city, I'm not necessarily looking for the Beverly Hills. What we're looking for is one aspect of the ethos of the pension fund. This is a long-standing organization, and what they're looking for is just long-term revenue. They're looking for the ECG, the economic and the social and the governance impact that communities that they invest in have. So when we look for a city, what we're looking for is what's going to have the most impact, the most economic impact. Is that economic development? Is it connecting municipal buildings? Is it the digital divide? Is it, keeping money in people's pockets and giving them the better services? So one of those underlying structures is how are they currently being served? What are the incumbents doing? Are the incumbents choosing not to put investment in because you have no competition, which means you'll be in a stagnant state for a very long period of time. So that's what we do. We're looking for the social economic demographics. If we invest here, do we believe, based on the research we've undertaken for the people, that this will have the impact we would hope and expect? And we believe so, given the scale of how underserved you actually are in the various neighborhoods, which that map very clearly showed, more so on the eastern wards.
So through the chair, were you recruited, or did you met with your project team and you said, a few years out, we will visit Cleveland and we'll reach out to the people in Cleveland? How did that go? Were you recruited, or you met with your team and you built a case? Because you got to build a case. And when you built your case, you said Cleveland fit in with our business model. Narrate that.
Yeah, correct. So through the chair. So in that instance, you need to wear the hat of a developer for a sec, the hat of Sci-Fi. Sci-Fi is not just looking at Cleveland. Sci-Fi looks at the state. From a state level, we then begin to rein that in. Out of the state, which communities would we believe to be investable as a developer? That is not your social economics. That is not the impact it would have on the people. It is pure math. So based upon the number of premises you have in your city, the number of residents, the number of businesses, based upon cost of construction, based upon the timeline to install that investment, i.e. fiber optic cable, and based upon how many miles of construction we would need to install to pass all of those premises, do the numbers add up? Can we install money past every single premise in a way that we can wholesale access to many different service providers over a long period of time and still make money? That's what a developer, and here's the key thing about the difference between a developer and an ISP. The ISP is looking more for the more affluent the neighborhoods. They can sell more product and they can sell it for a higher rate. The developer's not looking at it that way. The developer looks at the more challenging neighborhoods, the lower income neighborhoods, and the reason being is that those homes are smaller. They're closer together. So my dollar goes a lot further past smaller homes that are closer together than the more multi-million-dollar bigger homes. So ironically, what I do is take the economic benefit from the lower income and switch it the other way around to the larger homes, because it enables me to attract multiple ISPs with different types of products. So that's really how we look at it. It's pure math at the beginning, without anything else influencing it. does the numbers work? Can we invest X amount of money into the city and wholesale it at a rate that we can still pass every home? And if it does, then that'll lead us on to the social economics. There are a number of cities, number of towns, villages, and cities as a whole within a state that just don't meet those metrics. You are one based on that, what we call that KPI, that key, the key performance indicator alone. You check that box. So what we now want to know is how are you as a leadership? Is it a progressive leadership? Is it all about the people? How do you reinvest back into the people based upon the decisions and the projects you introduce to the community? That's what we start to look at the elected leadership. We look at city staff. What is the churn of city staff? Are you capable of retaining your staff? Because this is a long-term investment for us. We don't want your engineering team leaving for other cities because then we have to re-educate your internal team and how we build at the same time. So we go through that. So once we understand who the elected leadership is, does it work from a numbers perspective? What is then the social economics? What is the bachelor degrees? What is the low income? What is the tenancy rates?
And you doing demographics.
So we do a full demographic profile, and that's before we've ever knocked on the door. So once we actually see you as a viable investment as a developer, then what we'll do is we'll just leave it there. We'll then watch what the incumbents are doing. Are the incumbents investing in you? So I don't want to knock on the door day one. I want to just see how that evolves. Are they Are they investing? Are they serving your lower income areas as well as the affluent ones? As we then look at that profile, then we make a decision. Is the time now right to invest in you? The reason we wait that long is, one, we look at the incumbents, but two, it's all about the workforce. There is not enough people to build these throughout the entire country. The amount of cities that need this, there's just not the workforce in the country. So we have to be selective on who we are going to put our dollar, it's our private risk. Which cities do we believe can have the most impact for the community? And that's where we are today with yourselves.
So, through the chair, looking at lessons learned, what city you see is similar to Cleveland that you start working, or cities, plural, because you have executed on 43 cities, correct?
That's not, through chair, that's incorrect.
Right.
I have agreements, 'cause I wouldn't want to mislead you. So I have agreements with 42 cities at the moment. 10 projects are underway. And through then the closest ones, which would be of a similar investment and structure to yourself, or certainly construction to yourself, would be Rockford in Illinois and Kenosha in Wisconsin. Right now, the team is building between 10,000 and 15,000 feet per day. Not 250 that you'd often see, 10 to 15,000 per day. That contractor is well versed there. It's the same for Ohio, and that's why we want to use the same contractor, because the scale of reference for that contractor from the mayor, from the staff, from the engineering department is so high, they cannot be a big enough reference for any city. So that's why we feel that if that contractor is that good, we want them to be that good in your city as well.
So, through the chair to Chief Austin, you went to visit them, you called, you compare and contrast the model, the case that's being built here to the case in Rockford, Illinois. Is that true? To the chair?
Through the chair, we've talked with folks in Kenosha, Wisconsin, and I'll say that because it's the same general contractor, it's the same guys doing the same work. So we've talked extensively with the folks who actually do the work in the ground. Our team has here under Chief Tewin's purview, talked with the people who get their hands dirty to make sure that if they were to come here, fingers crossed, then they're doing it correctly. That was our focus, was making sure the work is done correctly. But yes, we've also talked with the other cities who have nothing but positive things to say.
And you looked at their systems, how they monitor and control it, because, I listened to the chief over here that she's going to have some workers here work side by side so we can be able to make sure that that you're hitting your dependencies. That's the word I'm looking at. Do we have anyone to do that?
Through the chair, yes, and at Sci-Fi Networks will be the funding source for us to provide that exact oversight service, yes.
And then, did you request for their model to look at their scope? You're building a case, how they're planning it, how they're monitoring and controlling it, how they're executing it. And what time will the project close out? Through the chair to Chief.
Through the chair, we looked at their contracts, so very similar to the one that's staple to the legislation before you today. We looked at the development agreements that were signed by, I want to say, about a dozen cities across the country, but with a particular focus on these two Midwestern cities, because very similar ecosystems, similar climate, similar road structures.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so we took a look, from a legal perspective and then from an operational perspective, all the above.
Yeah, because those are, through the chair, those are the risks also, and you looked at all the risks that we might, Council Member Kerry McCormick asked a great question about the trees, but it might be some other risk that you look at them as well?
Through the chair, we partly, the answer is yes, the trees I think were probably our biggest concern. The second one was, are we going to cause any irreparable damage to our roadways? No, we figured that one out as well. The other risks we think are largely mitigated by the way that we're building here. It's just a different and smarter way of building underground than we've seen in other cities. And I'll just emphasize, we're discussing what's a standard operating procedure and a best practice here at the City of Cleveland. This directional boring, we've done it before with other utility companies. It works. Our urban forestry divisions made sure it works. Our operations folks and our permitting folks and our MOCAP folks and our roadway folks have all looked at this kind of method before, used it here in the city, and we all agreed, yeah, this is both normal and the right thing to do.
One last question. Let's say, for example, you're doing a neighborhood, the community, you're gonna, before you start executing on the project, you will talk with the key stakeholders in the community through the chair?
Through the chair, I think I'll turn over to Mr. Bradshaw for that one, who has, in fact, a plan for doing exactly that.
Yeah, so through the chair, that's actually a very good question. So the key thing for Sci-Fi is local employment, because that's actually how it stimulates a lot of those types of questions. So when we're going, and that's actually also why we roll the food trucks as well, because we're looking for community engagement. What we learn in one neighborhood may as well be reapplied to the next active neighborhood coming along.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to build the entire city. Where we start just depends on how we get you to the outside world of the city. But we're going to build the entire city. So yeah, we employ those local people. We call them community liaisons. Those are the people that are walking the streets, educating people on the ground, the residents and neighbors, saying, hey, have you heard about this project? What are your thoughts? Do you know something we don't? And that's huge intel. And we take all of that back. And that's the difference today. I can turn up with a permit. It's on my agenda. I want you to have influence. I want you to have control of this project. If we're not doing something right, I want you to have that power to say, hey, project stops. You've got to rectify this. That's the difference in this one. If we're going to spend this, if Sci-Fi is going to invest this scale of money for a long period of time, I may as well invest it with your thoughts and ideas and your direction, because you know your people.
And Councilwoman Santana would like to get a point. Would you allow her a point?
Just on your question.
Okay, definitely.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilman. So really quick, through the chair to Mr. Bradshaw. I know that you mentioned that you're going to come to the communities and you're going to offer tacos, but it was my understanding from what I heard, it was really to share the what you're offering, the Sci-Fi fiber, so that they could change from their current provider to Sci-Fi, correct?
So through the chair, correct, that's one of the angles. Now, the other side is also on the digital inclusion, working with the libraries. So what we're looking for is as much knowledge and influence that we are just not party to, that we have not been exposed to. Staff will know some, they'll know the construction aspect, but for us, it's also about employing those local people, because we need that information coming back, working with the Chambers of Commerce. What don't we know there? So the more sources on the ground in the community we can be exposed to, prior to Spade ever going in the ground, the more we can have that influence the network design.
Okay, and so through the chair, let's just say, where we're at right now is we're approving the contract, correct? For us to move forward with the construction and the infrastructure.
No, just through chair. What you're approving is the non-exclusive framework that allows me access. I can't build upon that. I then have to design the network, then submit permits, and based upon you approving those permits, do I then have access? But right now, this is a non-exclusive framework of understanding of how we're proposing to
Got
turn
it.
out.
And through the chair to Austin, there hasn't been any resident engagement to this point since you've been working on it, correct?
Through the chair, that's correct. That's the 2-year design procurement engagement plan following this.
Thank you.
Councilman Conwell,
Yeah, well, you mentioned,
Councilwoman Spencer on that point.
Okay. Sorry, I'm requesting a point on Councilwoman Santana's point, which is Sci-Fi is not, through our chair, Sci-Fi is not an internet provider. You're the backbone, right? So I think that's an important distinction. I mean, it really, this is my third time I've sat at the table hearing about Sci-Fi, so if I'm embarrassing myself on TV 20 for all to see, I apologize. But I think Councilwoman Santana's point is very important, that this community interaction and the tacos or the people out in the community, whatever that may be, they're not selling Sci-Fi as a product. They're informing people that this fiber backbone is going into the neighborhood. But then I think it does raise the question, so to what end are they doing engagement? So people know why things are getting dug up?
So through the chair, very good point, and I appreciate the
Great point.
Okay, good. Sorry
the
to
separation. So if we break it down into 3, Sci-Fi is the developer. We are paying for this. We're going to maintain it, make sure it stays up and works. Through that, we then have that investment is through the Fiber City brand. So to your first point, Sci-Fi's role here is the promotion of the network, the promotion that this fiber network is here, promotion of Fiber City. That is fundamental for us, that we understand the impact that is going to have, because it's our dollars. So that's where we do the local sponsorships, we do the local investments, we do the tackle trucks. That is Sci-Fi paying for all of that. That's not the ISPs, that's Sci-Fi, because it's our brand. So the second distinction is the ISPs, to which you're absolutely correct. It is them selling service to the people. They're really just selling the products, what makes them different, what they can get, but the whole promotion of the network, how it's being built, that is driven by Sci-Fi through our brand, which is why we are here today as Sci-Fi that you see on the screen. But promotional-wise, no one's going to see Sci-Fi's name really going forward. What they're now going to begin to see is Cleveland Fiber City. They're going to see the Fiber City brand, which is where the separation then comes into play. But so you're absolutely correct. You got it right first time.
Can I ask one more question? And then, thank you to my colleague, Councilman Conwell, for deferring to me. So one more brief follow-up then through our chair is that this outreach and engagement really doesn't take place until the infrastructure is in the ground, that's been completed, and you have ISPs who are beginning to provide service? Or at what point in this journey does the community engagement begin?
So through the chair, that really comes down to yourself. And so we will bring our lessons learned. So when we brought it in with online advertising, offline advertising, the social events, the sponsorship events, those are all pre-spade in the ground. They are just events where we are beginning to promote the network. So nothing's been built. So that's where we're now introducing the networks coming. And we've not even promoted the internet service providers. We're just starting to promote the network. It really comes down to the feedback you give us more than we give you. We can show you lessons learned of how other cities have done it, how they've promoted the network, but that will only get you so far. So what we do is, straight off the bat, we will go through the lessons learned that other cities have done and how they've promoted because of various economic standings or just because they want to be on a pedestal. What we're going to ask is, based upon what other cities have done, how does it work for you? When would you like us to start to introduce the network to the community? And that's what we'll look for your direction. Obviously, I'm looking at yourselves, but I mean staff as a collective.
Councilman Conwell, you still have the floor.
All right, thank you. You know, Austin, Chief, there's a lot of known unknowns, and you got to bring us the case, because you're building a case right now. I know you need stakeholders to the chair, because stakeholders will help us out with even selling the project. If this is approved, I'm thinking about a lot of things, so I'm sorry. We would execute on it when, and it would close out when you think it would close out. To the chair, those two things.
Mr. Davis?
Through the chair, absolutely, and that's top of our mind too, is like, well, how long is it going to take? When's it going to be done? What are the steps to get us there? Here's the timeline as we see it. So this is an agreement for a framework to understand everything that's happening here. It's a big project, so we want to get organized, so they're not just throwing us permits willy-nilly, and we are like trying to address them one by one. So with that, we got about 2 years to get all of our increased contractor staffing handled through a series of RFPs for Sci-Fi to fully design, get all the technical specifications for all of their project, for Sci-Fi to procure all the materials and equipment and labor, the workers they'll need for that project. And after that, up to 2 years for that is what this agreement calls for. It's no more than 2 years for this design and procurement phase.
Wow.
Following that, no more than 5 years to build. And so let's say if this gets signed this month, then we're looking from 7 years from now, so about 2030, all wrapped up with the build. It's a long time, but
You know what you could do? If you hit your dependencies through the chair to Austin, Chief, and let's say we crash it.
Councilman, you might want to talk in your microphone.
Oh, okay. Let's say that you write down your dependencies. You say in 7 years, but let's say that you might get completed in 5. You don't have to do on this project. Let's say you did Glenville community. You might could do Glenville and 3 or 4 communities at the same time, overlapping each other, overlapping projects. And then instead of the 7th year, if you hit your dependencies, if the city, through the chair, is efficient, then they could save money, and then you could close that project out maybe in 5, maybe 4.5 to 5 years through the chair to Austin.
through the chair, that's our hope too, I think, and that's on Sci-Fi's mind as well. Everyone's got, the incentives are aligned to get this done sooner rather than later. It's better service for our residents, it's more money for Sci-Fi because they can sell to our residents faster. So we're here to make that happen to the extent possible. I think the constraints will be more around I shouldn't speak for Sci-Fi, but we got to hire a lot of people and we got to buy a lot of equipment. But those are challenges we'll tackle along the way.
Councilman, any last thoughts before we move on?
Well, you know what? Let's not leave it up to them. If the chief, Bonnie T, is going to monitor and control it, if we have to get some dollars, as council members, we know a lot of residents are not working. So what are we looking at as the average wage, or are there any benefits, or, those kind of things to sell to the residents? Because you might have some this year when you look at other stakeholders through the chair.
Through the chair to the councilperson, great question. And we're really excited about the potential wages, really, the job quality and service that could be provided here. So I don't want to speak too out of turn. We have a general contractor who is negotiating final deals for wages in here with the local who will be handling the majority of this construction is IBEW Local 71. Mm-hmm. They cover about 70 counties of Ohio's 88, and then they also have about a dozen counties among 4 other states. Giant local. They do the outside telecommunications work. There's another Local 38, based here in Cleveland, that does all the indoor work for the wiring and all that kind of stuff. Right. So we're talking really, these are good union jobs, hard jobs that you don't require a ton of travel, which is unusual for a lot of these trades, skilled trades jobs. My dad was a construction worker. He was gone a lot. So this is, and we're talking, $30+ an hour. So
That's good.
With an extensive pension, dirt cheap health insurance. These are jobs based in the city. That income tax goes to the city as well because it's all being built here.
I like that.
It's not a bad deal.
Meaningful jobs with meaningful benefits.
That's right.
Well, we'll see. But Mr. President, we need 2 things. Both of the chiefs must bring us the plans. You got to. I see going to the chair, when you come and you narrate things to us, and like this here, this is big, this is huge, this is a big rock. You got to bring us the plans ahead of time so that we can research it, we can study it. Now with Chief T, she got to monitor and control, and she should bring it back to council, to the Finance Committee or Public Utilities Committee when you start executing, maybe quarterly or 6 months. That's my take right there.
We definitely will be bringing them back. Definitely want to monitor this closely. So we're exactly okay.
Thank you.
All right. I had Councilwoman Spencer and Santana. Would you still want to go? Okay. Councilwoman Spencer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's good to be back at the table with you all this afternoon. Thanks, Councilman Conwell and everyone for your great questions today. I want to spend the majority of my time talking about tree canopy, which was brought up last week, and I know there's been more communication about that. But first, I wanted to, I don't think this was asked during Utilities Committee. I think this question of which areas are identified first for the fiber, I don't know if it's in today's presentation, but at least in last week's, there were maps kind of showing where we have some and where we don't have any, right? So I don't know if that slide is that slide included in today's?
Through the chair, there were certain slides in today's that were, yeah, the exact same, part of mine as well. I think if you're thinking if there was one with green dots and red dots,
Right.
yeah, we left that one out just
That one's
for
not-
brevity's
Yes,
sake.
just-
But
So through the chair, that's on me.
That's okay.
Yeah.
So I think the bottom line is, it sounds through further conversation today that Sci-Fi does include to cover the entire city, even where there is existing fiber that has been put in previously by other providers. Is that accurate, an accurate
So
statement?
through the chair, Sci-Fi's fiber city model for every city we invest in is a citywide model, correct?
Citywide model. So I think my question through the chair would be, how do we ensure that, I think this is building off some of what Councilman Conwell was asking, how do we ensure that the areas that have no coverage would be, who decides ultimately where we start? Do the areas with no coverage get fiber first, or are we just building redundant fiber in areas that already have some fiber access?
So through the chair, and that's actually a very good question. So if we can paint a visual for a second, the way it works is we have what's called our aggregation points, and these are just prefab buildings, about 300 square feet, 20 by 10, just so it's a regular prefab building. We're looking to point about 6 of them on the periphery of the city. Those buildings get you to the outside of the city, the outside of the world, to the data centers, which allows us to get internet connectivity into the city. Internet just doesn't turn up just because your phone's on. So those prefab buildings sit on the outside. Depending upon where there is existing fiber coming into your city that we can then access to get to the outside of the city to enable that internet to come in is where we will begin. So what we could have is a simple example. You could say, I want this particular ward because it has no fiber right now. And we could say that. And I could absolutely go and construct and put fiber in the ground in that ward. However, if there is no existing fiber that gets me to the outside of your city to a data center, I can't light my fiber up to give those people service. So what I need to do is, as we go through the design, we'll take all the areas you think you would like to see served at the beginning. We take all the network availability of fiber that's available today, that where we can actually bring fiber into the city to light it up, and we begin to overlay your ideas and thoughts of initiatives compared to the reality where fiber is, and then that what ultimately dictates where we can actually then begin to install fiber. Where as I mentioned, those 300 square foot shelters are, they also those locations also depend upon where we can site them. So if there's municipal land, we'd like to enter into a ground lease agreement, just a regular lease agreement, where we will pay the city to occupy that land for a very long, well, same length as the agreement. If there is no municipal land available, then we will actually put those shelters onto private landlords instead, which we'd rather not do because this project is about the people and not lining the pockets of private landlords.
Thanks. And so through our chair to Mr. Davis, do you have a thought about how the administration would engage with council in terms of understanding how and why the rollout is happening in the way it is? Is it, we know we want to serve areas that don't have any infrastructure. So how do you envision that going as this process proceeds?
I love the question, and partly because it makes us think about, like, oh, this is going to happen. We're really going to be providing fiber to areas that don't have any, and this 21st century technology in areas that the private sector has skipped before.
Correct.
And so I think the answer is deep engagement. I mean, at the end of the day, there are some realities of where things can go in the beginning. And I take some solace in knowing that after a 5-year or so period, everyone will have the same access at the end of the day. But in that interim period, it needs to be deep engagement with council. I think starting around the wards on the outside of the city and then moving our way in, because that's where the connections to the outside world take place. So we want this to be a conversation. We're not here to pick and choose, and you are closer to your wards and your residents in ways that we need to learn from.
Can I get a point?
Go ahead.
Councilwoman Spencer, would you allow a point?
I do, thank you.
Councilman Conwell?
You know what? Chief Austin is extremely bright. I sit back, I've been now watching you. You're a very intelligent young man. Why don't you, when you give us the case that I asked you earlier, you guys have a strategic plan also, which will help us to understand, to seek to understand the questions that we're asking you. And I know that you saw a strategic plan. Is that correct, to the chair, to Chief Austin?
I believe the strategic plan might still be in development. It's part of that 2-year design and procurement process. But the general, yeah, I think we've talked a lot about the rules of the road here. Absolutely.
But you know what? It's a technology strategic plan
Yes.
that we need, because technology is always changing and evolving. And he's looking at it on every semi-annually when things change, you know, and that will help us out through the chair. You see what I'm saying?
So through the chair, you're absolutely right. And, you know, in your thought train there with electronics, because that is a key topic, the one thing everyone should be thinking about is the underlining infrastructure. You know, the roads of tomorrow. And the roads of tomorrow is fiber optic infrastructure. You know, everyone in the fiber optic industry talk about the fiber optic cable being future proof, because we still cannot max out the data capacity it traverses that infrastructure. The one thing that is ever changing is the electronics. And that's really where Sci-Fi comes into this play, is by Sci-Fi not only paying for those electronics in the field and controlling them, we can also make sure they're being updated when necessary to ensure this network stays at the leading edge, rather than putting that responsibility onto an ISP who may choose to just sweat that out a few more years because they haven't maybe generated an return on investment on those electronics. That's the difference between a very long-term pension fund investment and one that's backed by short-term, maybe private equity, venture capital.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And I know you have that. We need that as well. Thanks very much.
Absolutely. Thank you, Councilwoman.
Thank you. I know my time is ticking down, so
I
I'm
took
going to
some
move.
of your time.
No, that was great. I took yours too. Thank you so much. I wanted to move into the finer detail related to. We're so grateful to have Jennifer Kipp at the table. Taking Ms. Kipp out of the field and away from her duties, attending to our urban forest, is a big ask, and we don't make it lightly. And we sincerely thank you for being at the table today instead of out working with your team and doing what you do every day. So I wanted to, we had some great questioning from Councilman McCormick about tree canopy as it relates to this project. I wanted to make sure that I'm walking away fully understanding the various, I think this will lead to some forestry questions, the various consultants involved that Sci-Fi would be paying for. If I understood correctly last week, there's at least one consultant who would help with processing the permits. I mean, we'd have permits coming in batches depending on where it's viable to start. And so there would be a consultant because our in-house capacity is not enough to process those permits. And then is there another, and then there are arborists and other consultants. So I just want clarity through our chair to these various consulting roles related to this project.
Mm-hmm. Through the chair to the councilwoman, the way we would do this is under one consulting agreement. So the arborist would actually work as part of the consulting team, in addition to the field inspectors, in addition to the office staff that's reviewing the plans.
Okay, so thank you. So through the chair to the chief, there would be an RFP for a consultant who would both do the in-house processing of permits and would also oversee a field team. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And then of the field team, so would these arborists be full-time? Would they be, so they'd be working for this company, whoever ends up winning the bid. So they would not be staff, they would not be our own urban forestry staff. They would be through this consulting agreement, or consulting agreement. So what would their day-to-day roles be through the consulting contract?
So through the chair to the councilwoman, as I see it, there's the arborist would have multiple roles. Even before construction begins, when they're looking at reviewing and approving the different package, that the arborist would be part of that discussions, whether it's out walking in the field to seeing if the plans accurately reflect the trees that are there. Once the permit is approved, or that package is approved, then during construction, the arborist would be available, whether it's on a daily basis or whether it's weekly or whenever they run into something. So I don't think we can actually say right now at this point that, that arborist is going to be 40 hours a week or however long. I think it depends in the area that they're working and how congested with trees they are.
Through the chair to the Councilwoman Spencer, just one more thing to add to what Chief Tewan was saying is that, all that is going to be part of like that 2-year process for the RFP, and I fully, will be involved in kind of, recommending language for that as well, based on conversations that Austin and I had, and that we don't know exactly, the number of arborists, right? It's going to be very tied into what that the plan looks like, the batches, if you will, of streets. So, and where are they located geographically in the city, and then what makes the most sense for, number of arborists? Is it one, or is it a team of several?
Thank you. And I think this helps bring clarity that I really needed, which is that the arborist would be involved. No permit will be issued until an arborist, as part of this contract, has walked every street in the area being requested for permits and looked tree by tree. I mean, that's the only way to do it, I think, right? Because every tree lawn is different. It's a different story. Look tree by tree to say, this is okay. This is okay for the standard directional boring plan. This one, it looks like we'd need to bore under the sidewalk or in the street. So, because that's kind of what we were getting to last week, is that there may be cases where you cannot do the tree lawn directional boring, and you might have to go into the sidewalk or the street. So, I would have the comfort level if I understood that no permit would be issued until that level of analysis, and that the permit itself would specify, this is what you can do here, this is what you can do there. Is that realistic, through the chair?
Yes. Through the chair to the councilwoman, yes. Yes, Chief.
Okay. So that's yeah, go ahead.
Can I add
Please
something,
do.
Chief? Yeah. Through the chair to the councilwoman. So we're seeing that, I think what you're describing, if I'm hearing you correctly, is that it's a prescriptive approach, whereas this proposal is just kind of blanket, underground, under the roots, wherever there's a tree. So it's going to be less, I guess we could draw on like what we do with another utility company in the city, is that, so we don't envision there being like a pre-assessment of all the trees and then determining on a case-by-case basis, because there won't be any excavation here. There won't be excavation for, to my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, no excavation for sidewalks, for, where are we going to put this size diameter utility as opposed to this size. So this, to my understanding in the proposal, is that under all the tree roots, 2 feet, which we know that's where most of the tree roots grow. They don't grow beyond 2 feet deep in the soil. And then if that arborist is on site, that maybe you could speak more to the technology, but my understanding is that they're just going under all the roots regardless. So there is no prescriptive approach required.
Through the chair, that's absolutely correct. So if it's what we were touching on last week, that where there are tree roots, it just makes more sense just to, rather than, I think I called it stitching, to the point you were making there, is that we'll just go deeper and just go straight under all the tree roots. It just removes the headache and the unnecessary paperwork.
So I think my question through the chair is that, would that happen at the juncture of permitting, or are we relying on people in the field to be able to anticipate if you need to go deeper? Or, and I did receive some correspondence that there could be rare scenarios where boring under tree roots is just not feasible. All of that would rely on good judgment happening in the field in the moment. And is that an effective approach?
So through the chair, from Sci-Fi's perspective, we can't take that risk. We want it ahead of time. So from Sci-Fi's perspective, which comes down to the de-risking of the project, we want to be exactly where your thought train is, that we will have understood that information ahead of time. We would not turn up on site with a permit and then just hope that we drill and it doesn't hit anything. So ahead of time, we'll complete the analysis, we'll submit the analysis through the appropriate paperwork, and subject to the approval of that paperwork, only then will we actually then drill within the public rights of way. Please. Yeah.
I mostly get it. I've, like Councilman McCormick, have had some, it's tough out there. Anytime you talk about construction or mobilizing or digging, I know this is not trenching, but I think this, systems don't always work exactly as we intend them to. However, I think the nature of this consulting contract will be extremely important in terms of the clarity of the role of the tree protections, the analysis for tree canopy, the role of the arborist. And then I think just for the good of the order, clarifying again through the chair that this consulting contract will be paid for by Sci-Fi. The city will not be paying for those consulting services ranging from permit review to the field services.
Through the chair to the councilwoman, yes, that the city can confirm, absolutely. This is a Sci-Fi funded, city managed process. So Sci-Fi is paying for it, but these are contractors who will be reporting to us, the city, not to Sci-Fi.
Oh, okay. You know,
Okay.
Council Lady, I gotta say this one quick point. Can I say it?
Okay.
You ever dealt with Cleveland roots? Cleveland roots are mean. They different in the roots out there.
All right.
You know, look at they tear up water main breaks. They tear up gas breaks. I have to deal with all of that. Cleveland roots mean. That's a big risk with Cleveland roots.
All right. Council Lady, do you have any last remarks before we move to the next one?
No, simply that I just again appreciate, I guess we have our A-team here in terms of our tree protections, and the discussion has been really important. And so thank you all very much.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Councilwoman Santana?
Thank you, Mr. President. And I have tons of questions, so I think I'm just going to set up a meeting. You made me feel good, Councilwoman Spencer, because if you went to a hearing of 3 hours and you still have questions, I have tons of questions. So through the chair, Austin, I know you're very good at reaching out to council. I really haven't gotten a brief on this. And so my questions, like I said, I mean, it's a long list, but excited about fiber optic. Free's not always good, so I'm just not at ease with that. And I know another thing is I feel like this process is backwards. It's like now we're building the infrastructure, but then we're engaging the residents. And so essentially, if they don't buy in to Sci-Fi, I just don't know what happens. So I don't understand why we're moving this way. And it seems to me like there's a lot of questions in the air, and you guys maybe haven't panned everything out. So for me, I just would benefit from a one-on-one, because I also want to know what's the workforce strategy.
Oh, yeah.
You know, what type of training do our residents need? I mean, do we have the capacity for that through our unions? And the more and more I meet with organizations, I hear we're not there yet. So for something that's so forward-thinking, are we there yet? And are we prepared for that? So I think I'm just going to save my questions for our one-on-one. Nice to meet you. It seems like you're very passionate about what you do, but I want to be very protective of our residents. And since I'm not comfortable, I don't feel at ease, I'm just not going to vote for this piece today. But thank you.
Thank you, Council Lady. And just a couple of other things before we move further. Did anybody else bid on this? Or was this something that was a sole award? Did anybody else bid on this?
Through to the chair, there's no bidding here. So part of this is that this is a non-exclusive use of a right-of-way. Anyone who wants to use a right-of-way can use it. If a Sci-Fi's competitor wants to enter into our right-of-way, they have to file the proper permitting paperwork and et cetera, just like Sci-Fi does. But there's not a bid because we're not paying them.
So AT&T, Verizon,
Yeah.
Spectrum, anybody else can apply and try to put multiple fiber optics, because this is, from what I understand, trying to get fiber to the door.
That's right.
So anybody else can do this as well.
To the chair, absolutely. And if any of those other companies want to pay the city for us to hire contractors, then I would. My phone is open. Please call me.
All right. And why didn't we? Just trying to understand why we didn't why aren't we going to the places where we have gaps first? If we say that 63% of the city residents and 64% of the businesses don't have that fiber to the door connection, if I'm hearing you correctly, why aren't we trying to go to the areas that have gaps first?
To the chair, I think Councilwoman Spencer had this exact point, like why not? Who are you engaging with? How will you know how to make this work? The gist is we have to start from the outside in, sort of just as a technical matter. You have to have the internet connect to something for it to, get you on the full World Wide Web. And there is an engagement process to determine exactly where these original locations will go that start to bring that fiber internet more to the city. We plan to focus on the disconnected spots as much as possible within the technical constraints. So you can really imagine from the outside in. And we plan to engage with council pretty directly on that concept because you know exactly where things need to go.
Okay. All right, sure. Go ahead.
I was going to say, just through the chair, or to the chair, when I was mentioning to Councilwoman Spencer a second ago, the hooks that we have on the outside of the city, one will be on the east, in the eastern wards, one's going to be on the west, north, south, etc. So they are going to be covering the outside. So you're going to have multiple wards coming live at the same time.
Yeah.
So all wards are going to be receiving service. If we dedicate just to one ward, we're alienating the rest.
Gotcha.
So we want to serve everyone equally.
All right. Well, I hope that, this is a big investment for the city. I'm really hoping that there are some serious fail-safes in here. I'm going to rely on the contractual process to make sure that we protect the city residents because I think we can try to legislate it, but it's because of something this complicated and this big and unwieldy. I don't think it would be right to try to legislate it, but I really hope that we have some serious out clauses to make sure that we're not stuck with something and then 5 years down the road, because if I'm hearing it's going to take 2 years to design, 5 years to start to implement, technology moves at light speed. We're liable to have an entirely new type of technology that might be on board. So I also don't want to make sure that we're allocating or investing in something and it'll be antiquated or won't be effective in 5 or 6 years. So hopefully we're looking at some serious fail-safes. But you guys are the experts. And did the Digital Coalition, did the Digital Equity Coalition or anybody else also give any input or advice, any other experts that, third party or anybody else with this? And I'll get to you in 1 second, Councilman.
Yes, sir.
To the chair, we've talked with a couple of experts. The gist is if somebody wants to build and it doesn't cost the city money, why would you stand in their
Okay.
way? And that's, we'll take yes for an answer.
All right. Councilman Conwell, closing remark before we move on.
I requested to Chief Austin for their strategic plan. They have a technology strategic plan, and you're correct because technology is always moving. It's always moving, and so I think they do quarterly strategy reviews. So we get their technology strategic plan. It will help us to see the way. I started to say through the chair, but you are the chair.
All right. Thank you, Councilman. We'll make sure we stay on top of that. Seeing no other questions, ordinance number 583-2023 stands approved, and we will consider it for the full body this evening. And please stay in touch with some of the council people like Santana and others that might want to do a little deeper dive, and we will be working closely to bring you back for some updates. Okay?
Thank you
Thanks,
very much.
everyone. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
You did good Thursday. Cool beans, man.
All right, utilities.
Hey, cool.
Come on up.
Yeah.
Director King.
Trees. I cut them down.
Thank you.
Paper.
This is ordinance number 432-2023, as amended by council members Casey and Griffin by departmental request and emergency ordinance authorizing the purchase by one or more requirement contracts of materials, equipment, supplies, and services needed to maintain, repair, or replace components of electrical transmission and distribution services, including labor for the Division of Cleveland Public Power, Department of Public Utilities, for a period of up to 2 years. Director, and please introduce the guests that you have at the
Yes,
table.
thank you, Chairman. Good afternoon to the committee. With me is Assistant Commissioner Bernie Jackson and Aaliyah McBooth. As discussed last week, Commissioner Danielson is out of town, missed all the fun, but is fully supportive. This ordinance, as has been discussed at the table, is another tool in our toolbox to serve our customers, being what the assistant commissioners do every day is use those resources. It is a staff aug ordinance consistent with how we do it throughout the Department of Public Utilities, from everything to emergency storm response to conversion for attraction of new customers when there's construction needed, and also, as council is very recently familiar with, the final conversion of the 480-volt LED system, whereas we can support the trouble crews, the LTL crews, to get those jobs done, which are required and expected by our customers.
And before we move any further, I want to make sure that I read the amendment, and it is, there is no legal objection to this legislation if amended as follows. Number 1, in Section 1, Line 5, strike the approximate amount of, and insert an amount not to exceed. And this was done 9/28/23 by Vishnu Gagliani. So wanted to make sure we read that into place. I know Councilman Casey is not here. He did tell me that this has been fully vetted by the Utilities Committee. Just the only question that I have is, so this means that how many trucks or how many crews will this give us the ability to go out to? Is it up to, or is it just as many as you need, or what?
Chairman, it is, we're going to go out and seek what the market will bear, and for a number of different emergency response, but whether it be hit poles, outages, transformers. So we're going to have classifications or duty, like a lineman, electrical line worker, a splicer, a switcher, a bucket truck driver, and we're going to see what the market will bear, right? There's not a lot of that we know of in the region that can respond in an emergency, but the only thing we can do is try to see if we can get fair, competitive prices for our customers, and then utilize those resources in the event of unfortunate events or storms.
And you can get these emergency operators from anywhere, so they're not local, they could be from anywhere? Or?
Well, we anticipate in the bid package that we will require a response within 90 minutes to 2 hours.
Which means that they have to be either in
They
the
have to be
city
close.
or in adjacent suburbs.
That's our hope, Chairman, because there's no sense in having emergency responders that coming from, further than that. So again, it's the first for CPP in this kind of general world that we're trying to do. So we're going to learn a lot by the bid package. We hope we're going to take a very close look at it and make sure if it doesn't do our customer a service, then we're not going to do it.
And just for the record, I know that there was some hesitation in the past because we wanted to make sure that we didn't feel like we were interfering with any kind of negotiations, but this will not impact any of the present workforce. This is additive and only on an emergency basis, not on a regular basis.
That
right?
is correct, Chairman.
All right, thank you. Do we have any other questions regarding ordinance number 432-2023?
Quick one, Mr. President.
Councilman Kevin Conwell?
You're commissioner, you're the chair, you're the commissioner of CPP? Or
assistant.
purchasing and procurement?
To the chair, to the councilman, I am the assistant commissioner of operations for Cleveland Public Power.
Assistant Commissioner.
So who's over the purchasing and procurement? I mean, you were speaking for them, Director, to the chair.
From a procurement standpoint, I would be the person authorized under the charter to sign the contract.
Right.
However, from review of the bid specs, when we put it out to bid and receive the responses, we would certainly involve operations to make sure that there's value. But from a procurement side, CPP has their procurement that comes up through our fiscal at the Department of Public Utilities, all under City Hall's procurement and OEO review. So there's a lot of different steps that would have to be approved before we actually get a package to review and score, and then ultimately award.
Okay. Okay. I mean, I always look at quality, service, and pricing when you do purchasing and procurement.
Could use you.
Yeah, the quality is important to me, to the chair, to the director. That's where I'm at. I'm fine. I'm looking
Okay.
at it right now.
All right, thank you. Seeing no other questions, ordinance number 432-2023 stands approved. Please sign on. Thank you.
I'll be right back.
Say it again. Okay, you want to let me know tonight?
Tonight. Yep. Thank you.
All right, next up is safety. Councilwoman House is here, and Councilman Pulisic. Next up is safety, ordinance number 860-2023 as amended by Councilmember Pulisic, an emergency ordinance to supplement the codified ordinances by amending section 605-14 as amended by ordinance number 1729-06 passed April 23rd, 2007, related to minors curfew. And I'll read the amendment. The amendment states, there is no legal objection to this legislation if amended as follows. In Section 1, at amended Section 605.14E, line 2, after for a first offense, insert, will be required to undergo a root cause analysis and be required to participate in family support programs as directed and guided by the court. This was done 9/29/23 by Mary Cornley, Assistant Director of Law. And joining us at the table, we have our attorney for the city of Cleveland, Attorney Rachel Scalish. So if she would like to give remarks, and then we'll go to Councilman Pulisic and Councilwoman House.
Thank you, Council President. So this amendment to the codified ordinances is to Section 605.14, minors curfew. Under this section, a parent or legal guardian of a minor has a duty to supervise the minor so that the minor does not violate curfew laws in Division A. The ordinance amends the penalty for failure of a parent or legal guardian to fulfill that duty. It goes from a minor misdemeanor for the first offense to a fourth-degree misdemeanor. That's the amendment. It amends. It goes from a fourth-degree misdemeanor for a second or subsequent offense to a third-degree misdemeanor, and the parent or guardian may also be required to perform community service. The value of that service is increased from an amount not to exceed $100 to not to exceed $250. Councilwoman House is passing around an amendment that, Councilwoman, you will have to make at the table here. Okay, all right. So just wanted to make sure that you understood that. Okay.
All right, Councilman, well, first before Councilman Pulisic, do you have anything to add?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, my honorable colleagues, and I want to thank Rachel Scalish for working with me on this piece and doing some of the legal work that needed to be done. Mr. Chairman, we all know the growing problem we're having in the city with juvenile violence, juvenile crime. It's become very clear to me that we have a certain percentage of juveniles out late night in the city running the streets. Many of us ask the question, why are they out at 2 and 3 o'clock in the middle of the night? Where are their parents? We learned during this whole process that CPD needed to take a more aggressive approach on curfew violations, especially nighttime curfew violations. And according to Judge Early over Cleveland Municipal Court, as she's indicated to me, if the cases are remanded to her by our Cleveland Police prosecutor, they have a special docket that will deal with the juvenile curfew violations and get their parents into the courtroom setting so they can figure out what's going on in the lives of these kids, why they're out in the middle of the night. Councilwoman House offered two supportive amendments to this. She has passed out at the table with regard to family support programs, defining that, and then also the root cause analysis. I have read her proposed amendments and I support them, and I would urge my colleagues as well to take a look at them. And we do have copies of this for the Assistant Law Director because we will have to change some of the letters within the section 605.14. So, Mr. Chairman, again, I want to thank Rachel. I want to thank my colleagues who've gone on record in support of this. At the end of the day, we got to send a message that if you're going to have children in this city, then you got to be responsible for them. And to see what we've experienced this year with, again, juveniles out all hours of the night, and and again, parents not being held accountable is a very upsetting. The overwhelming majority of our residents, they want accountability. I heard it at a meeting Friday night in my community to talk about crime and public safety. Residents want the curfew laws enforced in this city. So at that point, Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to accept Councilwoman House's amendments to Section 605.4, and again, all members have a copy of that.
Mr. Chairman, I'll second that motion.
All right, so we have a motion seconded, a motion moved and seconded. Is there any other discussion? Seeing no other discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you so much. I know she's not part of this committee, but Councilwoman House, did you have any comments or remarks you wanted to make towards this?
Thank you, through the chair, to the committee, just to get clarified, because so the amendment did get approved in general, talking about, because we talk about wanting to, we know if a juvenile goes to court, their family will get stiffer penalties, but really wanting to think through how do we begin to intervene and stop this behavior. And so that's where the root cause analysis, as well as requiring families to go through family support programs. But one thing, when you put something out there, we want it to be very clear and define from council's perspective what we mean. And so that's what this amendment is. So thank you all so much for approving it. And so it is very clear to the courts what the expectation is from the Cleveland City Council. And then we actually, for me, continuously to just ask people, we will begin to actually have a body of evidence that we can utilize as we look at implementing programs in the city of Cleveland to really curtail some of the juvenile delinquent behavior. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Councilwoman. I know you've been really advocating for this for a while. The one question that I have, if you could help me out, how would we get access and maybe get regular updates? Would we just petition the court to come and give us
Probably
updates?
so. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, that's good, because I think you're right that we should be identifying trends, which then can dictate where we should be making investments around youth violence and trauma and other things like that. So this is good stuff. Anybody else on ordinance number 860-2023? Councilwoman Santana.
Thank you, President, through the chair to Director Howard. I'm just curious, one thing that we all know is that laws are in place, but then the follow-up and the capacity and all that, right, makes it hard for us to follow through. I'm curious to know how this is going to be handled.
Director.
Thank you, Councilwoman, through the chair, Council President. These are changes that are made at the court level. So the Cleveland Division of Police will still issue the citations as they do. This will not necessarily affect them doing the enforcement. They will do the enforcement. They will continue to do the enforcement and focused enforcement. This will take place at the court level. So our officers will appear in court, but these changes are primarily going to be at the court.
Are we issuing curfew tickets as of now? Because I remember seeing a report and the numbers were pretty low. Are we enforcing that now?
So we are enforcing it. One of the things that has to be considered is that there are two defenses that come to my mind, immediate mind, when it comes to curfew enforcement, is if parents file their children as being unruly with the juvenile court, that is an affirmative defense. And if they report the child as a runaway, that is also an affirmative defense. And we see those as tools that these parents are using to either escape accountability for curfew violations, or a way that they express that they can't, they have children that they can't control.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anything else on ordinance number 860-2023 as amended? Seeing no other questions, ordinance number 860-2023 as amended stands approved. Thank you so much. Please sign on.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, my colleagues.
All right, thank you. Yeah, we'll be putting all that out this evening. Okay, we're gonna stay on, which one is your helicopter?
It's
1027? or 8?
It is, I'm looking for the EDC. Walk on.
Hold on one second, everybody. I got 10, 20.
Yeah, that must be it.
Is it? I don't have it. Inez, do we have safeties for the helicopters? I thought Councilman Pulisic sent it to us.
It should be here, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. I don't see it. What number is it?
It was, no, he wants it relieved. He wants it
Conversion of the 2 helicopters.
under suspension.
The helicopters from safety.
Do we have it? Is it over here?
1142.
Dash 2023.
That's 2023.
Did you get it over to us, Director?
We did.
Okay.
Okay, she'll check on it while we try to track it down because we don't see it. But this is ordinance 1142-2023 by council members Pulisic and Griffin by departmental request for passage October 2nd, 2023, for emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Safety to enter into one or more contracts without competitive bidding with MD Helicopters LLC for the purchase of labor and materials needed to convert 2 helicopters for the Division of Police, Department of Public Safety. Now, just to give everybody context on this, this is a piece that we actually passed almost like Councilman, about 19 months ago?
March of 2022, yes.
March of 2022. However, as soon as we passed this in March of 2022, the company who we approved had some bankruptcy challenges or something happened with their business. Since then, there has been a reconstituted business, and this company is now reconstituted and now ready to move forward with the work. So we've done significant background on this, and Councilman Pulisic has been gracious enough to relieve this. Director, do you have any other background? And then we can hear from Council Pulisic and then move forward.
Yes, if I may, Chair, is that we are requesting passage under suspension today that this legislation authorizing us to enter into one or more contracts with MD Helicopters LLC for the upgrade of 2 helicopters for the Division of Police, Department of Public Safety. The Division of Police utilizes MD helicopters, and the upgrade of the police helicopters can only be performed by a type of certificate holder for the MD helicopter product line. MD Helicopters LLC is the only type of certificate holder for this product line. The helicopter upgrades will be made from Fund 10, Subfund 400, in the amount of $3,590,997. If approved by council, these 2 helicopters will be made to be converted into from MD 500E to model MD 530FF. These significant upgrades will improve the performance, safety margins, and reliability of the helicopters, which will better enable the Division of Police to efficiently and effectively respond to increased gun violence and other crimes in the city of Cleveland. Councilman, Chair, you're absolutely correct. We had entered into this agreement being prudent with taxpayer dollars. We did not want to engage in a company while it was engaged in bankruptcy. If this company had dissolved or gone away, then we would not be able to seek these upgrades, as this is the only company that can do the work on these types of helicopters. Chair Pulisic and I have had extensive conversations about this, the need for the helicopters, and why going this route is prudent for taxpayer dollars and also critical to the Division of Police.
All right. Councilman Pulisic.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, my honorable colleagues, and to the director and to the command officer from CPD. Obviously, this has been a big frustration for the council. We passed this legislation, as we indicated, in March of 2022. We saw most recently the effectiveness of what helicopters can do with the strategic enforcement with the Ohio Highway Patrol in their enforcement in the city with their Operation Surge. The governor himself has indicated to both the council president and myself how effective the helicopters were in the crackdown of stolen vehicles, outstanding felony warrants, drugs, and guns, and the apprehension that the Ohio Highway Patrol, in partnership with CPD and U.S. Marshal Service, has been. So again, Mr. Chairman, this has been a great concern of the majority, over all the members of council with regard to the helicopters, because once they're flying, we can reduce the number of pursuits, the number of chases substantially, and we can apprehend the perpetrators of violent crime in this city. The only thing I would ask of the safety director, there has been an increase in the dollar amount from what we passed. Can you explain the increase?
Sure. And just to add on to that, if you could, that is from SF 400, which means that is that the money from Rescue Recovery Plan Act dollars. So could you answer both of those questions?
Sure. I know that I can answer the one. Is that the increase is just the cost of equipment and services that have gone up with everything else in the country. This is, as council stated earlier, that this was passed around a year ago, more than a year ago, and the cost has gone up for services and supplies. This amount reflects that.
Okay. Do we know what the exact increase? I don't have the exact dollar amount increase from what we passed. I thought it was just over $2 million, Mr. Chairman, we passed in March of last year. So if that...
The increase is approximately, I believe it was $200,000. Okay. This is the... Oh, yeah, so... Okay. Yeah. So the increase is nearly $200,000.
Okay. Okay. And Mr. Chairman, the last thing I'll mention, and we'll get into this when we start talking about the budget, is that there's been a lot of discussion within the body because of the number of officers that we have lost. We've been depleted within the ranks. Is the whole question is, do we need to have uniform officers piloting the helicopters? And then the other question is, as we've been looking in connection with staff at other major municipalities in areas of the country, we've noticed that in many other areas, the sheriff's department, Mr. Chairman and my colleagues, operate the aviation units in partnership with municipalities. Here, the city of Cleveland operates the aviation unit, and then at times we're called in to patrol or assist in suburban pursuits and suburban patrols. I am hoping at some point the administration would engage the Cuyahoga County Executive and Cuyahoga County Council, because I asked the question, why should the burden on aviation fall squarely on us? Shouldn't the county be involved in this process, as we see other counties operate the aviation unit, and then all the cities kick in toward that operation? I think it's, when we talk about metropolitan government or a broader engagement, I think we need to start looking at the county taking a more active role in supporting the aviation unit, or creating their own aviation unit, which then we would be a part of. So again, these are things that we're going to be talking about prior to the budget, but I have posed these to the safety director, and I hope at some point there'll be those types of discussions. Again, I question, and many members of this table question, why do we need to have police officers operating and piloting the helicopter? So, okay, I'll leave it at that note, Mr. Chairman.
Director.
Chair, if I may answer your first, the unanswered question, yes, that is from the recovery fund. You were asking about the source of the funding. The other portion that is important is that we all are always looking at how to leverage our partnerships. Our partnerships have been very successful. We have had, one helicopter has been up in the air pretty consistently. I believe we have had other helicopter, our partners from the state provide air support as well. The Cuyahoga County Sheriff has been a partner since he has gotten into that role, Sheriff Patel. And I can tell you that the mayor and the county executive are extremely interested in us supporting each other. With regard to the pilots, Chief Drummond and I are discussing and looking at a way to train our officers to fly our helicopters. We have some officers who are pilots who I think would be adaptable to this training. But as I told the chair in a previous conversations, that whether or not officers need to be, our officers, sworn officers need to be flying our helicopters is a conversation that we would have with the law department. It does bring about certain protections such as accountability, care for our equipment. We review secondary employment. We would make sure that our helicopters are up in the air, but we want to have a robust flight program within the city of Cleveland. While the county could be helpful in that regard, we do know that as long as the City of Cleveland Division of Police has its aviation unit, our priority is going to be the City of Cleveland.
All right. Okay, I have Councilman McCormick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Most of my questions have been answered. I'll be brief. Director, thank you for bringing this forward. This is, I think, a really important part of fighting crime. The question I have, though, is when and how we deploy these. I agree with Councilman Plentek. I think these are extremely helpful. Thinking about how do we track violent criminals and without having to do high-speed police chases and things like that. The question I have is, are we going to be deploying these to assist Vice, Patrol, to apprehend violent criminals? I mean, sometimes I see this aerial unit above like 20 people at the Women's March, and I'm like, why do we need a helicopter above like 20 people walking over Lorraine Carnegie Bridge versus what OSP has been doing, or Ohio Highway Patrol has been doing with assisting pursuits, right? Assisting violent criminals who are being pursued by CPD or otherwise. So is the idea to focus on apprehending violent criminals, or can you speak a little bit more to that?
So just the short answer, then I'll go to Commander Counts, who can provide more detail. Yes, absolutely. The helicopters do provide support for some of the major events that we have. Sometimes that is dictated by the intelligence that we have come in, or the size of the group, or just the cultural, the climate nationally. So we want to make sure that everyone has their right to express their First Amendment rights peacefully. But to answer your question as far as addressing violent crime, that is absolutely a priority. Commander?
Thanks. I'm Commander Ron Counts, Bureau of Homeland Services. The aviation unit falls under my command. So to answer the question, yes, the helicopter unit provides direct support to task forces, basic patrol, the mayor's initiatives such as RISE. Everything we're doing, we're getting a better view from above. When the helicopter operates, we can quickly go overhead, do a perimeter sweep, see what's in the area. If there are suspects fleeing, they can locate them quickly. At night, they have a thermal detection capability. They can even find guns that are discarded because of the heat signature. So it's a critical tool in our plan. It's not the only one. We're trying to combine all tools, but especially for the pursuit mitigation on risks, we'd like to use more and more the helicopter unit. Our partners, when they step in with helicopters, it provides a safer environment. Officers can step back, slow down, and when the helicopter answers up what location they're bailing from the car, where they're heading to, where they're hiding, then we can make a safe apprehension.
I appreciate that. And through the chair, I'll just say it's good to hear that. And I hope that we spend more flight hours on pursuing violence in neighborhoods versus events in the downtown area. I mean, again, we've seen with the Ohio Highway Patrol how effective it's been. So I just hope that we focus more there. Thanks.
All right. Is there any other questions that anyone else has? All right, seeing no other questions, ordinance number 1142-2023 will be considered for passage tonight in front of the full body. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to bring up our guest from Destination Cleveland and Chief Abu Nama. Okay, this is ordinance number 1028-2023 by Councilmember Griffin by departmental request, an emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Finance to enter into one or more agreements with the Convention and Visitors Bureau of Greater Cleveland Inc., DBA Destination Cleveland, to establish, manage, and implement the Cleveland Major Events Grant Program to provide grants to assist with acquiring and executing high-profile events benefiting the city, and to apply for and accept any gifts or grants for this purpose from any public or private entity. Chief, and could you introduce our guest? Hi.
Yes, good afternoon.
And the amount of this is for $2 million.
That is correct. Thank you, Council President. With me from Destination Cleveland is Marie Scalia. I was going to say Scalise, who is the head of marketing over at Destination Cleveland. So we have a brief presentation to run through in connection with this ordinance. I'll give a brief overview of what it is covered by the ordinance, and then run through the presentation. Then, of course, happy to take any questions that council has. So what we're proposing to council is to create what we're calling the Cleveland Major Event Grant Program, which would be seeded with a $2 million appropriation from our very favorite fund, 10400. Which is where the ARPA money actually went through revenue recovery. And the goal of this fund would be to support efforts led by Destination Cleveland to bring major events to the city. I think we've seen a lot of major events over the years, and we kind of intuitively can appreciate the energy and activity and economic vibrancy that they bring to the city and to the region. And so we're hoping with our a portion of our American Rescue Plan Act funds that we can provide a source of money to help promote those events coming to town over the long term. And so on this first slide, we just have some examples of some upcoming major events in the city. We have Forbes 30 Under 30 happening this month. We have the Women's Final Four tournament in April of next year, the 2024 Pan American Masters Games in July of next year, and then the National Association of Black Journalists Convention in August of 2025, to name a few that we know are in the pipeline. And going back to my initial comments, these events, they provide sort of a surge of economic activity from outside of the region, so bringing money into town that isn't already here. So it's not recirculating money that's in the system; it's actually adding new into the pipeline. It allows the city to be seen on a national stage, and I think we do well on that stage, and we look good. Brings visitors, and then of course, focusing on the bottom line, it does increase tax revenue to the city when we have these events. So what is this grant program? It'd be a $2 million appropriation of our American Rescue Plan Act funds. The appropriated funds would be allocated to Destination Cleveland, who would administer and disperse those funds to organizations that have been selected via an evaluation process, which we'll get to in a couple of slides. And it will allow the city to regularly invest in bringing these kinds of major events to town. So with respect to program eligibility, really taking a comprehensive view of the kinds of criteria that are important when assessing whether an event is the kind of event that we want to support with these funds. And so this is a list of I believe it's 8 or 9 criteria that we would be evaluating for. So, critically, most of the events sort of within the broader event would need to happen within the city. The city would have to be competing against other locations for the event. We would have to have a certain metric of lodging booked on behalf of the event so that we're sure that the event, whether it be the Forbes 30 Under 30, et cetera, is bringing the kind of economic activity to town that we anticipate. The public has to be able to attend. That's a critical access point to the criteria eligibility here. The entity receiving the grant must be a nonprofit or managed by a nonprofit organization. The event must provide at least an amount of its own funding. The organization must bring its own funding to the table that at least matches what would come out of this events grant program. We would need a minimum of 2,000 out-of-town attendees, and we define out-of-town attendees as anyone traveling from a distance of greater than 100 miles outside of Cleveland. And then finally, any event that receives money out of this fund would not be eligible for a sort of a rolling 5-year period to receive more money out of the fund. So how will this work? How will these evaluation criteria be deployed? So Destination Cleveland, as the administrator, would review applications that come in from organizations that want to host events in Cleveland. Those applications would be scored against the criteria that we just walked through. Once that is done, any application that receives a score greater than 15 would be reviewed by a second committee, which would consist of the mayor, the council president, a designee of the mayor, a designee of the council president, and then the executive director of Destination Cleveland. And then that group of 5 will determine which applications are the ones that should receive funding as part of this process. Also important is that the funding will not be provided up front. It will be provided after the fact once the organization is able to verify that they've actually satisfied the eligibility criteria that we went through on the prior slide. And then finally, Destination Cleveland will, in connection with each event, provide economic impact reports to the city so that we can get as clear a sense as possible of the economic impact of the investments that we're making in bringing these kinds of events to town. And then it's always good to know that we have company. This is not, we're not the tip of the spear here. Other communities have implemented programs like this. And so you see on the slide, the state of Ohio has its sports event grant program. Hamilton County down in southwest Ohio has a large tourism event grant program. And then there are some examples in Florida and in California of similar programs being implemented to attract major events to communities. And so with that, happy to take any questions.
So before I go to Councilman Polensek, just a couple of things. Could you give us the as-is? What are we changing? Just so that people can understand how these type of events are presently and what the actual change is going to be.
So I think through the chair to the council, it's a really good question. As I understand it right now, an organization wants to have an event in Cleveland. They reach out probably to Destination Cleveland as sort of the entry point. And then it's kind of up to everyone to figure out how it's going to work. There might be requests of the city, might be requests of the county, Destination Cleveland, the state, to try to cobble together the funds to make an attractive pitch to these organizations. I think what we're doing here is, one, we're putting a framework around how decisions are made to allocate funds to events. So we will, with those 8 or 9 criteria, we'll have sort of an objective way to measure the impact and assess whether this event or that event is the kind that we want to use public money to support. And then it also creates a pool of funds to actually be able to more strategically act against those requests. So I think with this, we will be able to frankly act a little more strategically and have some guiding principles for how we decide what kind of events we want to support and what kind of events might be really good, might be great to have in town, but not necessarily worth the support of public money. And I think that's the benefit we're getting here.
So let me try this a different way. Final Four wants to come to the city of Cleveland. Final Four reaches out to Destination Cleveland. Destination Cleveland then starts reaching out to all of the partners to try to cobble together the package that they need to invest in, the amount of money needed to attract the Final Four. Once that's done and everybody says this is the lane that they're going to do, then you guys approach council and say, we need $500,000 to go towards this event to attract XYZ. Instead, this will set aside ARPA dollars and go directly into this fund, and now it won't be a case-by-case basis. You'll be able to strategically go after some of these big events because you say you already have the pot that exists, as opposed to we'll figure out the pot once you agree getting here.
Yeah, to the chair, that's exactly right. And it'll set, with the criteria, the evaluation criteria as they are, it will inherently sift. It'll allow us to sort through the big events that can have the biggest economic impact on the city and the smaller events, and allow us to focus on those events that have, with this money, that have the biggest impact and the biggest ability to generate economic activity in the city.
And it's $2 million coming from American Rescue Plan Act dollars that have been put into the general fund. Is this coming from the rainy day dollars or the 27th pay amount? Or which pot is this exactly coming from?
Through the chair, it is coming from, so when we received the American Rescue Plan Act dollars, through the final Treasury rules, we were able to claim lost revenue. The money that we claimed as lost revenue went into a strategic priority subfund, that 10 SF 400 subfund. The funds for this initiative would come from there, so not from rainy day or the 27th pay.
And the only thing that I want to make sure is that that fund, we actually subdivided it. So there's a portion going to back to basics. There's a portion, 30 million going to back to basics, 50 million going to sites fund. We've set aside 35 million for catalytic projects. I just want to make sure we're not tapping one of those buckets.
Yep. To the chairman, that's absolutely correct. So when council passes legislation for any of these projects, we in our accounting system, we create a project account for that initiative, and we pre-encumber the funds for that initiative. So the 50 million for the sites fund is sequestered away for the sites fund, the 35 million for the catalytic projects, and so on. So this is unencumbered cash balance of that 10 SF 400.
Okay. So this investment will also potentially, I don't want to say anything for certain, but part of what has been appealing to this is that I've gotten several calls from the state and others that they're looking at leveraging this fund, and actually this first $2 million is like first dollars in, but then there's also other money that we're trying to attract with this. Am I correct?
To the chair, that's absolutely correct, and we're working with the county and the state in particular to bring similar dollars to the table to further support our ability to bring major events to Cleveland.
But they're not on the decision-making process. So I know that once they put money in, will they have to come back to the table to be a part of the structure, or are they fully understanding that the structure that you have in place with the mayor, council, and Destination Cleveland is set, or will that potential structure change?
To the chair, I don't know that the structure would need to change. I would imagine if the county puts, let's say, a similar amount of money for countywide events, that it would have its own decision-making process in parallel to the city's process. So there could be, similar to what we talked about with the sites fund work, there could be projects in which the county wants to go a different direction, and that might be fine. The county has a broader purview than we do in the city, but that ideally each governmental entity is reviewing each proposal at the same time and making informed choices based on what their priorities are.
And the sense of urgency in this is because we have the Forbes event that's coming up in the next couple of weeks. And part of this will be going towards helping underwriting the Forbes 30 under 30, right?
Through the chair, that's my understanding, yes.
Do we know what portion of this $2 million will go towards underwriting Forbes 30 under 30?
I don't have that exact amount right now.
Okay. All right. And last but not least, I for certain don't meet the category or criteria for 30 under 30. But there are some council colleagues, maybe Mike Polensek might meet that criteria, but I know I don't meet that criteria. So, but there are some colleagues that really, as stakeholders, should be engaged in this. How are you going to make sure that council, as a major investor, is a part of this, is embedded in this? I'm looking to my left and to my right on two close to 30s that should be involved in something like this, and I haven't seen neither one of them get an invite yet.
Through the chair, we can definitely talk about that. I'm not certainly up to speed on how
It'd just
that
be
is
good to
working
know
out.
the logistics
Yeah.
as we're investing, to see how council can be involved as an investor, should be involved in some kind of way.
Absolutely.
Because of something of this magnitude, the younger wing of council should be able to be involved. So if we can get some background on that, that'd be helpful, okay? All right, I have Councilman Polisi.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, my honorable colleagues, and to the director and to Destination Cleveland. This is a lot of cha-ching, so I'm trying to understand. What did we do last year for supporting special events and activities? Do we know what that number is last year?
Through the chair, not off the top of my head, I know the local commitment to supporting, say, the NBA All-Star Game in February of 2022 was quite significant. It included both cash support and in-kind support with respect to city services and the like.
Okay, but you wouldn't know what that is.
Not off the top of my head.
But was it a direct cash from the city?
Through the chair, I'd have to confirm. I'm not sure about direct cash payments from the city. I do know that there were in-kind support through police and other public safety and public works.
I would understand that, but you indicated from sub-fund 10 S400 sub-fund. Do you know how much is left in that fund?
Through the chair, the amount of unencumbered cash that has not been legislated, I believe there's somewhere between 20 and 25 million of the amount that was put aside for council projects.
Right.
And then I think otherwise maybe 2 or 3 million.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I would respectfully ask if we could get that, because we're funding ARPA projects, and it becomes blurry after a while as what we have funded, because there's been so many, and then what is exactly left and what those dollars can be used for. Because I'm like my colleagues, I'm getting constant inquiries from businesses. Is there any financial assistance available, or can we do this for different projects? And I'd like to really know what is left and what restrictions or what has the parameters been drawn around that money that can be used for. I'm just trying to get a better understanding. But what I'm not clear on this, okay, this is $2 million. So give me an example how this would be used. I mean, you indicated in this would be the event must expect at least 2,000 out-of-town attendees from at least 100 miles or more outside of the city. You've indicated that there were 5 examples of this, 2 in Ohio, and then 3 in other parts of the country. So only 5, you've indicated there's 5 examples of this, I guess, nationally. But I'm trying to get my arms around this. There's $2 million. What would it be used for? Tell me. I mean, give me some idea what you're going to use the $2 million for.
So through the chair, I think, and I'll invite Marie to jump in as well. I think traditionally when an event like the Final Four wants to come to a community, it's a competition. They kind of suggest to a variety of communities, hey, we could have our events in your town. Who's going to give us the best deal? And so then, we, the public sector and the civic sector in each of those cities has to sit down and decide, is the event worth it? Do we make the investment? Do we think that there will be a return on that investment? And if so, in what ways? And I think that's essentially how this process will work, is that you have Destination Cleveland as kind of the coordinator of this work, but then there are, the state has its events fund. The city would, if council were to approve this. We're hoping the county creates a similar approach so that we can provide compelling packages to major events that we think make sense for our community.
Okay. Does any of this go for administrative cost of Destination Cleveland?
No, there's
Not at
no
all.
administrative fees.
Okay. So no staff, no salaries, no nothing. This is direct financial support for the quote-unquote entity or group that wishes to come into the city.
Yeah, through the chair, yes.
And you believe, based on what we have supported last year, and again, since my memory, I can't recall what we supported last year, Mr. Chairman, do you believe there was a financial benefit as a result of what we did?
I think through the chair, I can definitely ask Marie to jump in there. I know Destination Cleveland has assessed the economic impact of the recent major events, NBA All-Star
Okay.
Game, Major League Baseball
Okay.
All-Star Game, et cetera. That shows that these major events, these really big ones, they do bring a lot of economic activity
Okay.
into the city that would not exist otherwise.
Okay.
And through the chair, that is something that we measure after every major event, is we do an economic impact report to report out to stakeholders, rights holders, the economic impact that was driven into the region.
Okay.
Yeah, and so just for some numbers, for
Yeah.
example, the 2022 NBA All-Star Game brought in approximately $141 million in direct spending and over $248 million in total economic impact.
Okay. So those reports, are they sent to the clerk? How are those reports generated? Who gets them?
So through the chair, Destination Cleveland produces those reports. I think one of the commitments that we are making as part of this process is that after any event funded with this money, Destination Cleveland would produce a report, and that report would be shared with the city, both administration and council.
Okay. And so on that point, Mr. Chairman, I'll make my ongoing amendments that I would ask that City Council receive a quarterly report on these dollars that we are being asked for. So I don't see Assistant Law Director here.
Tytron is over there.
Okay, that City Council receive quarterly reports from, I believe it would be Destination Cleveland, because that's where the money's going, correct? That we receive.
Before we accept that, do you guys make sure that, because once you have this legislated, we're going to expect a quarterly report. Is that something you guys can deliver?
Through the chair, I would say the reporting for this will be more event-driven rather than the
That's
passage
why
of time.
I asked that question, because
And-
it may be several quarters and might only be like 2 quarters that you have something, and the rest of the year you don't have anything.
That's right.
So that's why I asked that question. But to the councilman's point, what, Councilman, do you want to stick with that, or what?
Well, okay, if you didn't have anything, you didn't have anything.
Okay.
You know, so I'd rather have the quarterly report so we would have an understanding. I'd like to see how that $2 million, how it's magnified, because you've indicated you're looking for county assistance, you're looking for state assistance. And maybe if those numbers can be justified, then maybe then we embark on a lobbying effect with the county or the state as well to try to get additional dollars. But, you know, again, out of everything we're dealing with at this table, as the council president alluded to, this is a big ask. It's $2 million. And we've got to be able to justify that we're going to get a return on the dollars that we're allocating here.
So we have a motion on the floor.
Through the chair, if I could suggest perhaps event-based reporting and then an annual report, kind of rolling all the event-based reporting together so we get an annual snapshot. I think quarterly is too quick a clip for it to really convey meaningful information, meaningful analytical information.
What you're proposing again now?
Through the chair, a report after each event assessing the economic impact of that event, and then an annual report aggregating what happened over the year.
So we still want to look at time, and I want to respect what the councilman is putting forth. Forbes is what day?
It's in 3 weeks, I believe.
So
through the chair, 2 weeks.
October something is Forbes. So instead of us waiting until the first quarter of next year, we would actually have something sooner, or what are you saying?
I would think it'd be more burdensome, but if that's what you want.
That's why I'm asking the question.
Well, through the chair, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe Destination Cleveland already assesses the economic impact of each event. So that's not a new step in their process. The only new step would be an annual report kind of summarizing everything that happened during the course of the year.
Well, if you're prepared to do that after each event, if Destination Cleveland's able to do that.
Through the chair, we can certainly help to facilitate to make sure those reports get done, whether it's us or, a third party. That's
Okay.
something that we help facilitate.
Well, we're going to make an amendment, so somebody better do it. So, Mr. Chairman, I would make the amendment, I would change my motion that after each major event that this money would be utilized for, that there be a report back to Cleveland City Council, and then a yearly report back as well.
Joe, do you have that, or do you need it repeated? Mr. Roberts, do you have that amendment?
I do.
Okay, amendment has been made for ordinance number 1028. Do I have a second?
I'll second that, Mr. Chair.
Second from Councilman McCormick. Is there any discussion? Seeing no other discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. So that amendment will be made, and be looking forward to having that assessment after every event, and actually having an annual yearly assessment regarding the impact of this fund.
Okay. And then just finally say, Mr. Chairman, like with anything, the proof will be in the pudding. And so, again, I want to make sure that the $2 million, because again, as we've talked around this table, we're never going to see ARPA funds again. That's a given. I think, so we had to make sure that this expenditure is really going to have the return that we expect, and if we need to leverage additional dollars, then we need to be aware of that. So then we can embark upon that lobbying effort again with the county or the state. So again, Mr. Chairman, I support it with the amendment. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Councilman Bishop and Councilwoman Spencer.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I too, like Councilman Polensek, I'm trying to understand what, what is this $2 million? So this is just an open-ended $2 million that we're going to give Destination Cleveland to spend however they want. How will we be notified? What's the specifics of the $2 million through the chair, through the chairman, to the director,
Through the
to the chief? I'm sorry.
Through the chair to the councilman. So the way that the funds will be allocated to Destination Cleveland, but then will be dispersed based on an assessment using the evaluation criteria, the 7 criteria that we walked through in the slideshow. Yeah, that's the one. And then that's the first level of review, which will be done by Destination Cleveland, and then each of these criteria will be scored on a 0 to 4 basis. So each of the ones will have up to 4 points that can be awarded to an application. So you could have a maximum of 28 points, minimum of 0. Any application that gets a score of 15 or higher will then be reviewed by a smaller group of 5, which will consist of the mayor, the council president, a designee of each of the mayor and the council president, and then the CEO of Destination Cleveland. So you have five persons reviewing this smaller group of applications, and that group will decide how the money gets allocated, if at all, to the application. So the 4 of the 5 ultimate decision makers in this process will either be the mayor, the council president, or a designee of each of them. And so the city, indirectly, through this process, will have final say, ultimately, of any dollars that get spent out of this fund.
So through the chair, so each time this committee meets to evaluate these events, to do a scoring system, will the council be notified, or will it be something separate? It'll just be done behind closed doors?
So once that 5-member committee looks at those, will something be forwarded to all of the council, which I think it should be?
Through the chair, absolutely. We can forward what decisions were made by that group, and share the information with council.
Mr. President, through the chair, to the chief, what's our normal allocation to Destination Cleveland on a yearly basis?
Do we make an allocation to Destination Cleveland on a yearly basis?
We do.
Do we know?
Through the chair, we do. I can't recall off the top of my head how much it is.
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah.
Could we follow up and get that, Joe, what our yearly allocation is to Destination Cleveland? Councilman McCormick asked for a point. Would you allow him that quick point?
Go ahead.
On that topic?
Thank you. Just a quick point of clarification. Council will have a direct seat through the chair on the selection committee. Is that correct?
Through the chair, 2 seats.
2 direct seats. Okay.
Yes.
Just wanted to clarify so that.
And just if I could clarify now, usually council does not vet proposals. They only come to us if they're looking for a dollar amount after the decision is made. Am I correct?
Through the chair, that's correct.
All right. Councilman Bishop.
Through the chair, to the chief, do we have a time frame when we want to use this dollars by, or is it just basically we're going to give them $2 million and I mean, is there a certain time frame, or is there certain events that's targeted, or there's no certain events that we're trying to go after?
I think through the chair to the councilman, the events that I've run through at the outset, Forbes 30 Under 30, the Women's Final Four, Solar Eclipse, Pan American Games, the Association of Black Journalists, those are examples. Now, I don't know where those events sit in the kind of funding status, but those are examples of projects that could see funding out of this. There is no outer time limit on when the funds would need to be spent. We are anticipating grants not to exceed $500,000. So, we're not trying to spend all of this at once, and that we're trying to stretch these dollars as much as possible to bring as many major events to the city as we can.
Okay, all right, thank you, Mr. President.
All right, Councilwoman Spencer.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I'm just noting that we've heard a couple of back-to-back pieces today that are ARPA-funded pieces, and I wanted to, on this particular piece, clarify through you, Chair, to the chief. So we know that this comes from revenue recovery funds that are fund number 10 SF400. However, I wanted to ask through our chair to you, Chief, if you can clarify the amount remaining, the unencumbered amount remaining, because we have our council catalytic fund of ARPA that has some proposals moving forward. And then, so where would this come from, and how much money remains unencumbered?
Through the chair, I unfortunately do not recall the exact amount that remains unencumbered. This is coming not from the council catalytic side. This is these are funds that are just not connected to any project at the moment that is moving through the legislative process. So I believe we have under $10 million left in unencumbered funds in 10 SF 400, but I'm not exactly sure of the dollar amount.
And that is not including, the council funds are separate from what we are discussing today?
Correct.
Okay. I mean, I think, Council President, in general, I would have a higher comfort level if we had those exact numbers to review about how much is remaining. But if you have a comfort level with this and it doesn't impact any council-directed projects, I don't have unwillingness to move forward.
I can tell you that I've been watching the council dollars like a hawk. It's approximately about 7.5 or so that we have left out of our tranche. And then that's why I asked that question, to make sure that it was not touching that, the age-friendly, and the other things that we've settled upon as well. So I can tell you that was one of the first questions that I had, because I agree with you totally.
Yeah.
But I will say, to Councilwoman's point, I think it would be good, because our staff has been keeping track of some things to reconcile so that we can make sure that we're on the same page. Because Councilman Polensek is right. People are still calling with last-minute requests to try to get ARPA dollars, and I'm pretty much telling them that the account is closed.
Yeah, and through the chair to the councilwoman, any project that has an ordinance that has passed is not affected by this, nor is the money that's been set aside for council projects.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you. Just so that I could reiterate this, we've sat on this for about a month, because my first inclination was that I don't like things to go outside of City Hall or city processes, because not only is it important for us to be able, as council, as an oversight body, but it's important for transparency and all of those things. What I have come to learn in doing my research is that other cities like Columbus, Cincinnati, and others have been beating us to the punch with some of these big events, because they're more flexible and more nimble. And then also, this gives us a little bit more of a proactive involvement in the conversation, as opposed to saying, hey guys, we got the RNC or Final Four and we need $500,000, and then just come to council and ask for $500,000 cold. So this kind of at least gives us some parameters. If we need to revisit, I think Councilman Bishop asked a very good question. We don't anticipate that this is going to be the same ask every year, do we?
Through the chair, I'm not aware of that expectation.
Okay. Okay, because Councilman Bishop asked a good question about making sure, are we going to try to spend this money in 2 weeks, or are we going to stretch it out and spend it over 2 years? It would be good to be able to understand when and how we have to replenish that, and it would be good to have some clear guidelines. I know I've received calls from the state and from some other regional commerce people that this fund is going to get magnified, but it would be good to know what amount of money everybody's putting in. Okay? All right. Any other questions regarding ordinance number 1028-2023? Seeing no other questions, ordinance number 1028-2023 stands approved. Please sign on. Thank you. All right, I'm going to go to, and I don't think these are, yeah. Ordinance number 1027-2023 by Councilmember Griffin by departmental request, an emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Finance to employ one or more professional consultants to assist with the implementation of Government Accounting Standards Board Statement Number 96 subscription-based information technology arrangements and any other future GASB implementations for the city's annual comprehensive financial report, and to assist in the preparation and calculation of current GASBs that are already implemented by the year, and to transfer that knowledge to the appropriate city personnel for a period of 1 year, with 2 one-year options to renew exercisable by the Director of Finance. Director.
To the chair and to the council, this is the exciting stuff, government accounting. I have Mr. Gentile here, the city controller, to discuss the specifics of this ordinance. Thank you.
And this is the CAFR, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yes, Council President.
Okay.
Through the chair to the council members, every year we have to do the annual financial report. Every year, the GASB board, the Governmental Accounting Standards Board, passes new regulations that we have to increase reporting. Now we're up to over 100. This is number 96, but they're in the ballpark of over 100 now. So every year this happens. Now, historically, we've done these in-house. The last year and this year, we're kind of moving outside to get some additional help. Staffing's an issue. We're trying to hire people. We're still short 4 people. We're required by the state of Ohio to file by the end of May financial statements for the previous year. And then we also, by the end of June, we send it in to the National GFOA for our reporting award. So we've met that guideline since 2002 to current. I just want to have safeguards in place to make sure, as sometimes we have staff shortages and not the expertise in-house like maybe we had before, to be able to do this. So this gives us a professional service for GASB number 96, which is subscription services. So anytime we have a computer software in the cloud, like ADP, Kronos, Advantage, this is the way we account for that. It's going to change, and it changes with new financials. So it's applicable this year. So the financials we complete at the end of this year have to comply with this to be in accordance with general accepting governmental standards. So we have to do that, or we won't be in compliance. So this also gives us the ability for future GASBs, if the city needs help in the next couple of years, to, instead of coming back, be able just to engage the same firm that we pick with this process to help us with those if we need it. If we can do it in-house, I prefer to do these in-house. It's a great learning experience for the staff. That's why we have knowledge transfer. So last year we had leases. We do have the spreadsheet from the firm that completed it, so we will be able to handle leases this year, lease accounting, which we had help last year. Last year and this year, again, are the first 2 years since probably 2004 that we've had outside help. But I just want to make sure we have the help we need to file reports on time and be in compliance with state law, as well as to file our annual report with the National GFOA, so we can get our reporting award. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Mike Polensek.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, all colleagues, to the director, to Mr. Gentile. I understand your comments at the table, but one thing I must interject at this time that's something that's of great concern, and I don't know who would care to address it. As I indicated to the Council President, I've been receiving calls from individuals who work in EMS collection.
Yeah.
And I am greatly concerned, from what I've been told, that they are down to 4 people in EMS collection. There are 22,000 outstanding invoices, plus that haven't been acted upon. They are about, according to staff, those invoices are about to be null and void, many of them, because of the length of time. And I mean, I keep asking myself, what is going on here? That there's a revenue stream, I don't know how much it is, that is outstanding. And at one time, I believe there were over, I want to say 13 or 14 people there working on invoices. And now we're down to 4, allegedly. One's out on maternity leave, I'm told. Would someone care to address this, why this is not being addressed?
Through the chair to the councilman, the situation in EMS billing that you referred to is certainly on our radar. It is not something that is going unaddressed.
Okay.
It has been a challenging set of issues to deal with, sensitive personnel matters that we're working through. We've implemented different management approaches and have continued to work with the staff to ensure that we're able to process bills in a timely and accurate fashion. We're currently in the process of working through a regularly scheduled audit with the federal government to assess our billing practices. And it's something, I think Mr. Gentile can attest, it's high on my list, something we talk about a lot. And I'm hopeful that we are able to resolve it soon, because to your point, it is, this can be a very strong and good revenue stream for the city. We, I believe as of the end of August, we were behind against our 2022 collections by about $750,000. So it wasn't hugely off on a dollar basis, but it was behind of where we were last year. We have brought in, we're in the process of bringing in an outside firm to help us with the backlog so we can process claims that remain in the system that haven't been processed yet, while we work through our sort of processes with our full-time staff to ensure that we don't get these kinds of backlogs going forward.
But Mr. Chairman, to the director, I've been around here a long time. Why wouldn't we just why do we have to constantly go out for outside contractors to augment what we should be doing internally? We used to do this stuff internally. So first of all, I'm going to ask through the chair, do we know how many outstanding invoices there are at this point?
Through the chair, I don't have that with me.
Okay, and I would respectfully request it. And I'd also like to know, as a result of that, what is the outstanding dollar amount associated with that amount? Because I think this is something that we need to get a handle on, and this has been festering. Who's in charge of this? Who's over that area?
Through the chair, I am.
Okay, but there's somebody over. You're not sitting there processing invoices for EMS. Who's supposed to be in charge of this?
Through the chair, right now, Ed Romero is assisting with the management of the unit, but ultimately, as the director, the responsibility stops with me.
But director, then why aren't we hiring people? And I say this respectfully through the chair. I don't think I'm the only one. I'm seeing this thing. We got to bring in consultants. We got to do this. We got to do it. Da 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 da. There used to be a time we did all this stuff, and we were able to stay on top of things, and now we're not able to. And we got to get back to some kind of semblance of sanity around here so we can collect the revenue that is owed us, and we can put people to work. And I for the life of me, don't understand. I saw it in 311. I see it in this department, this division. I see it in economic development. We don't have enough people. There comes a point here where maybe as we approach, Mr. Chairman, I appreciate everything you've been doing as we move toward a budget. Man, we've got to start analyzing this. Do we have enough staff in these departments, in these divisions that do what needs to be done rather than bringing in outside consultants?
Through the chair, if I may, it is a really difficult hiring market out there. In particular for these medical billing jobs, we compete with the hospital systems, the clinic, UH, Metro Health, and other healthcare providers who frankly pay quite a bit more than we do. And so when someone who is interested in doing this kind of work has the option, they're likely to go work for the Cleveland Clinic.
Has jobs been posted, Mr. Chairman?
To the chair of the council, so we did hire a couple of people, but unfortunately it attrited. They found other jobs. We do constantly look for temps to kind of backfill this. Generally speaking, we're usually back about should be back around 6 to 8 weeks. We should be behind about that much time because you don't want to be right up against billing.
Yeah.
We're about back at least twice that amount in billing, so we are about twice as far as behind as we normally should be.
Is it 22,000?
I mean, it changes every day because there's things coming in, but approximately it's probably around 22,000 in total. I would say
Outstanding
that's an
invoices.
I would say that's an accurate count of
Well,
where we're at.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to wrap it up. Why don't you get members of council, give us the job postings so we can send those out in our blast them out or put them in our newsletters or whatever the case may be here. I mean, come on, 22,000 invoices? Give me a break. Give me a break here. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, and at some point in time, we do need to really, really do a deep dive because I'm trying to understand. I know that I've heard and I've had conversations with the administration, and they said that other cities usually use other firms and collection firms. But I'm a huge fan of trying to keep our employees in place that I think do a good job. And we need to make some real critical analysis on all of these departments on, if it's better for us to keep operations in-house or out-of-house because, sometimes you can have these things happen by neglect or there's an intentional lack of hiring because people don't have confidence in the department. So I know the market is tough. You're not the only one that people are saying that, but somebody needs a job out there. So we just got to try to figure it out some kind of way.
President.
Councilman Conwell?
Yeah. I agree with Councilmember Mike Polensek, sir. I mean, you cultivate workers, and when other workers see that you're cultivating them and you are promoting them, and they see their buddies are promoted, they feel good. And to let something through the chair to Mr. Gentile, you're the controller. He works for you. You're the controller, and you see the 22,000 is coming. While you're controlling, you see what's going on through the chair. Is that correct?
To the chair, I mean, I don't directly deal with the EMS billing, but I do work with the director and I do work with Ed Romero to try to make sure that we do the best we can on our billing, any revenue collection. So I do take a look at all those. They're not directly report to me, but I do look at all incoming revenue and try to maximize it, yes.
Yeah, and through the chair, I just want to make clear, we are working to solve this issue. This is not something that is going unaddressed. It's like with a lot of things that in our day-to-day, it's really complicated. There are a lot of factors at play, but we're simultaneously bringing in help to get through the backlog so we get those bills out, and we're also working with the staff to provide training, et cetera, to ensure that we don't end up in this position going forward again. And so there's a lot of risk here. Because the only risk is not just revenue. We are able to do this billing to the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid because we have a license to do so from the federal government. And if we do not uphold our obligations vis-a-vis the federal government, we could lose that license. And so this is something that is top priority, and we will fix. It is complicated and takes time.
All right. So you through the chair, you inherited this here. When you came in, you probably had maybe 14 or 15,000. I'm making an assumption. And now it's at 22,000 and it started, because you did the audit and you saw it at what level? 15, 16, or 17, and now it's at 22,000?
To the chair of the councilman, yeah, it used to be less than 22,000. It probably was in the neighborhood of 18 or 17,000. Probably when the chief came to work for the city, we've had some people depart that work there. Mm-hmm. We've tried to backfill. We did backfill a couple permanent positions. They then left for other employment, They did not stand long. We've had some temps come. We were able to keep a couple temps. Just as the chief mentioned, the job market, especially in this area, is very tough. We're just not competitive with what what we pay compared to what other entities are paying builders. I mean, so it makes it very difficult to maintain the ones we have as well as to attract new ones right now. I mean, job market's tough everywhere, but it's specifically tough in the medical billing field right now.
You know, through the chair to the finance chief, we're looking at 17, maybe 18,000. You cultivate workers. You know, the training is ongoing. As the council president mentioned, we should have started cultivating and training people if we know people are going out through attrition. Because attrition, you monitor that, what's going on, and you know that we're going to get to this point right now. So you said to the chair, to the finance director, that we're going to make sure this is not going to happen again once we get it down to whatever number that you're looking at. So, you know, training is ongoing. You got to train some workers constantly with this. Through the chair to the finance chief.
And through the chair, we have conducted training for the staff in the unit on sort of best practices with respect to medical billing, ensuring that they're processing bills in a timely fashion and accurately, so that when they do go to Medicare, Medicaid, and the private insurers, they get paid. And we're working hard to ensure that they have the tools that they need. We upgraded the software system last year to a more modern cloud-based system to enhance their ability to do the work. And we're investing in both the technology and in the training of the staff to ensure that we improve the operations of the unit going forward.
Yeah, I got that. I'll say this in my conclusion. I think when the chairman, Mike Polisic, talked with the safety director, and I know they're going to do a strategic plan meeting before February. I think this should be in a strategic plan, the model, what you're talking about, should be narrated to the safety committee through the chair, and that even when February come up, it should be footnoted in the book where we at and how we're moving forward with it, because it is part of finance to the chair. It is finance to the chair to the finance director. You think? Oh, well, you'll see it. He'll show it. It won't be a surprise. Then you can start doing some planning.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilman.
President Day.
Thank you so much. I think that's it. Seeing no other questions, ordinance number 1027-2023 stands approved. Director, I do want to make sure that we look harder at what these are jobs that people should be able to fulfill. So if it's something we could do, let us know, even if it's putting our, advertisement out or anything, okay?
Okay.
All right, thank you. Appreciate it. And welcome back, Commissioner. Good to see you.
Thank you.
All right. Next one is, and I think this is you too, Director. Yeah, courts. Ordinance number 1084-2023 by Councilmember Griffin by departmental request, an emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Finance on behalf of the Cleveland Municipal Court to apply for and accept a grant from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration for the Recovery Project 5 to expand evidence-based treatment for specialized docket defendants, and authorizing the Director to enter into one or more contracts with various agencies, entities, or individuals to implement the grant. Director.
Through the chair of Ms. Kinney from the courts. Through the chair of Ms. Kinney from the courts, who can speak to the specifics of this ordinance. Thank you.
Good afternoon to the chair. My name is Michelle Kinney. I am the finance director for Cleveland Municipal Court. I am speaking on behalf of Judge Early, who is our administrative and presiding judge for the Cleveland Municipal Court. This grant here we got directly from the federal government. It's a 5-year grant for $2 million. We can spend $400,000 annually. We had this grant before for $2 million from the last 5 years. And with this grant for the past few years, it applies to mainly our drug court, but we also have our other specialized courts that we have defendants come into. And once they go to those courts, if it's determined that they have a drug abuse within their system and it's affecting them mentally, human trafficking or through the veterans, then we send them through different type of treatments with different agencies that we use for this grant. We work through NORA, we've worked through CATS, we've worked through more counseling. We've also worked through Case Western Reserve University, who assist us with our analysis, determining who comes in to get the treatments that they have. Over the past few years, we had about 237 individuals come through the court and get treatment through this program, through that through the $2 million grant we received over the past 5 years. 65% of those have been male, the rest have been female. The age group that is normally comes through and gets the treatment is from the age of 25 to 44 when they go through the court. And that's all I have for my presentation for now. And I know last time we were here, we received $200,000 for the specialized dockets. We are in the process of responding to the request that Pollensic had as part of that request, getting who went through different wards in regards to those treatments for that $200,000. So we don't track that directly, but we're in the process of gathering that information because when we get individuals that come through that program, they have specific zip codes, and some zip codes are shared by different wards. So we're in the process of trying to do that over at the court to make sure we get that information for council. We're start doing the same thing for the grants moving forward that we do receive, because I know that is something that City Council would like to have for the courts to represent. Again, it's $2 million over the next 5 years, and it's $400,000 on an annual basis.
Okay. All right. Councilman McCormick?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Councilman McCormick?
Thank you. I want to just briefly support this legislation and thank the courts. You guys are always, Mr. Chairman, on top of innovative dockets, and I don't ever want to take this for granted. You guys do a great job, and just going after this federal funding is a big part of that. You guys stay on top of it. So thank you, as always, for being a partner to City Council. Judge Early's a great leader to make sure that partnership stays the way it does. So just want to recognize you all for your hard work on these dockets and your responsiveness. Anytime I reach out to you guys, you're responsive, you're on the spot. So I just don't want that to go unsaid, because sometimes we assume and take for granted that, but when you're doing the good work, just as people get criticized when they're not doing the good work, when you're doing the good work, I want to make sure that people know about that. So thank you for your partnership.
Thank you. Councilwoman Santana and Councilman Pollensic.
Thank you, President, and I concur with Councilman McCormick. You guys do a wonderful job. Through the chair, Ms. Kinney, have you received this amount before? Is this your first time receiving a $2 million grant?
This would be the second time that I've experienced during my time with the court that we received $2 million for this type of grant. We've received it over the years, but it hasn't been that much, hasn't been $2 million. But the federal government, through the programs that we have had, we had to report back to them the different type of services and make sure we're following the grant. And they have used us as an example for other courts and how we implemented the program, how we service the clients that do come through the Cleveland Municipal Court.
That's wonderful. I think we need to be sharing these types of stories, right, a little bit more. But through the chair, Ms. Kinney, the reason I'm asking, I've just been looking through the brevities, and our overdose cases are just very high, through our area. And I know that many of our organizations don't have the resource. I'm just curious, are you seeing an increase in cases through the courts, and maybe that's why you guys were awarded such a high amount this time?
I just think across the United States in itself, our court has been seen, again, as an example of how we issue treatment to individuals, just based on the percentages. People that go through the treatment, that come through the court, we send them through treatment. We have about 69% that have not gone back to using drugs out of the people that we have seen, based on the analysis that we have Case Western Reserve do for us. So, again, I can't say I've seen an increase or not. I'm not sure. I'm not exactly in a courtroom. I'm the finance director. So, but I can take that question back to see if they have seen a trend through our probation department as far as individuals going through the treatment, going back on drugs as compared to those not.
Okay. And then my last question, I know that there's also been an increase in the Latino community, and I'm curious to know, do you have bilingual staff there through this grant maybe that you fund to help link any non-English speaking families to these services or individuals?
Only thing about this grant, it is not for that, to use for that, but we do have an interpreter division within the Cleveland Municipal Court, and we are actually hiring for an interpreter for Spanish. So we do have a couple of individuals in-house that take care of that, but we are hiring for that, so if you want to put a plug in.
So an interpreter, but not a bilingual staff member, right? Or?
Either or.
Okay, got it.
I just
All
know
right.
we have a room for an interpreter. That's the title with this we have out there, but I know it's strictly for Spanish speaking.
Got it. Thank you. If you
mm.
could send me that job description, I would really
Okay.
appreciate it, and I could share it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councilman Pelisi.
Honorable colleagues, to Ms. Kenny, who's an outstanding resident of the 8th Ward. I know that, I believe my late friend, honorable friend Larry Jones is the one who started the drug court, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, and so I appreciate what he did. This is very important. I wholeheartedly support it, but I will also ask, whatever information can be provided to us, either on census tract, zip code, whatever, to see the effectiveness we're having and then see what kind of, where the problems are lying in the city of Cleveland. Anything that council can obtain would be very helpful, because as Councilwoman Santana indicated, I look at the statistics as well, and the fentanyl pouring into this city is outrageous, not just here, but across all urban areas. But it's exceptionally of great concern to me when I see the number of fatalities within the city and then the number of individuals who are addicted. So whatever data and information the courts can supply us would be very helpful. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you so much, Councilman Pelisi. Seeing no other questions, ordinance number 1084-2023 stands approved. Please sign on, and congratulations to the courts.
Thank you.
All right. Director, if you could, that last ordinance, I know we're done with it, but could you tell me what the amount is for the GAO? $200,000? Okay. All right, thank you. I forgot to ask that. Thank you. All right. The next one is ordinance number 892-2023, as amended by council members McCormick, Bishop, and Griffin by departmental request. And it is an emergency ordinance to amend sections 512.02 and 517.08 of codified ordinances of Cleveland, Ohio, 1976, as amended by ordinance number 396-2020, passed June 3rd, 2020, and ordinance 464-2019, passed June 3rd, 2019, relating to shared mobility device and bicycle vendor permit applications. And I'll read the amendment before we move any further. It says there is no legal objection to this legislation if amended as follows. 1, in section 1, add amended section 517.08E, line 1, after herein shall insert not exceed $50,000 and shall. Date 10/2/23, signed by Vishnu Gagliani, Assistant Director of Law. Assistant Director?
Yes, hello. My name is Keisha Chambers, Assistant Director of the Mayor's Office of Capital Projects, and we are submitting this request to amend ordinance number 892, 2023. The amendment includes establishing a 3-year permit duration, allowing the vendors to set their own service areas, removing the ability for the vendors to set their own service areas. We would like the service area to be City of Cleveland as a whole. And we authorize the Director of Capital Projects to enter into a professional service contract and purchase agreements as needed to implement the city's shared mobility program.
All right. Okay, Councilman Bishop, this was heard in Public Works, and Councilman McCormick, did you have any comments?
Mr. Chairman, we fully support this.
Councilman McCormick?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We heard this in Transportation Mobility. One of the conversations we had was around ensuring that the Shared Mobility Fund is utilized for its original purpose, which is multimodal infrastructure and the systems that support that. At the time, Ms. Bursman and the director did verify that that's the case of what we'll be going through here. So once they assured us that that fund, Mr. Chair, will be used for its original purpose, We thoroughly reviewed this piece. We think it makes sense for extending the 6-month, 1 year to 3 years, as well as some of the other amendments that the city put forth.
Yep, the service area.
The service area, yeah, Mr. Chairman, let me very quickly touch on that. Right now, the companies determine the service areas. This piece will ensure that the city controls it. So if we want to say there are dead spots in the city or there are neighborhoods that could benefit from this, that we have the ability to tell them where they need to put it versus the flip right now in the previous ordinance, which they would have. And we talk a lot about transportation and how expensive cars are and providing alternative forms of transportation for our residents. So part of this is making sure that we are able to direct these types of resources to neighborhoods that the companies may or may not choose to operate in. So I think that's a really good change for this piece.
Okay. All right. Seeing no other questions, ordinance number 892-2023 stands approved. Thank you, Ms. Chambers.
All right, thank you.
All right. Next up is ordinance number 908-2023, as amended by Council Members Polinsky and Griffin by departmental request, an emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Safety to renew lease agreement number LS 2018 through 24 with Cuyahoga County for the lease of certain space located on various floors of the Justice Center for a term of 1 year, beginning October 2nd, 2023. Director, and please introduce the folks that you have with you. I would, hold up, before we move any further, let me read the amendment. It says, approved for passage or adoption by requesting departmental because Director of Public Safety to renew lease agreement number LS 218 through 24 with Cuyahoga County for the lease of certain space located on various floors of the Justice Center for a term of 1 year beginning October 2, 2023. And it says there is no, this was signed 8/24/23. And then it says there is no legal objection to this legislation if amended as follows. In number 1, in section 3, line 2, strike $192,017 and insert $177,417.75 and strike $124,233 and insert approximately $114,500 in line 4. Strike $11,625 and insert $14,875 and also strike 93 and insert 119. This was done 9/26 by Rick Bertovich, Chief Assistant Director of Law. Director and Ms. DeGennaro and everyone else.
Thank you. My name is Suzanne DeGennaro. I'm the Commissioner of Real Estate. Our request is to amend our existing lease with Cuyahoga County for the Cleveland Police Division headquarters at 1300 Ontario to extend the lease for a period of 1 year from October 2nd, 2023 through October 1st, 2024. The Division of Police will occupy approximately 114,500 square feet at a base rent of $18 per square foot and 7,557 square feet of shared space with the county, which is a gymnasium space located on the 5th floor at a rate of $9 per square foot. Division of Police will also lease approximately 119 parking spaces in level P1 in the underground parking area at $125 per vehicle per month. And Division of Police will also pay a proportional share of utility costs based on the actual cost from last year's lease, which began October 2nd, 2022, in an amount of $395,842, which equates to $32,986 per month, and includes electricity, water, sewer, steam, and chilled water.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Polinsky.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, honorable colleagues. We did hear this at length in the committee hearing. We had asked for some additional information, which Ms. DeGennaro has provided to us today. The question was, and the director was not here to do family circumstances at the meeting. We would like to get an update as it pertains to the status of the new police headquarters as soon as we can get that in writing, something to give us some update as to where we are. At the end of the day, as you can see, Mr. Chairman, our friends at the county don't cut us a break. So it's, they, besides taking the jail out of the city of Cleveland and all the jobs, they, I guess they think we're cash rich here, which we are not. But at the end of the day, they own the facility. We are tenants, so they have us by a certain part of our anatomy, and we have to deal with that, regardless of whether we like that or not. So it is what it is. I wish we would have been able to get a better deal out of them, but at this point, it didn't look like it, and I think the administration, from what I can ascertain, probably cut the best deal they could in light of the fact that we are tenants. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. Seeing no other questions, ordinance number 908-2023 as amended stands approved. Thank you all. Please sign on. Introduce yourself at least at the table so everybody knows who you are.
I'm Kevin Mateo, Lieutenant, Cleveland Division of Police. I work out of the Chief's office.
Thank you.
Chair,
Appreciate
them
again, real loud.
Kevin.
Chair, may I just say one thing?
Sure,
I know that
please.
we're finished, but Commissioner DeGennaro, folks at MOCAP, did a really great job of looking out for the Division of Police, making sure that we had sufficient space in the face of reductions, and I just don't want that to go unsung.
All right. Thank you, Ms. She does a great job all the time.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. All right, thank you. All right, we got 3 human resource pieces.
You got to be downstairs by.
I know, we about to head down now.
Yeah.
Hold up, it's at 6, right? What time,
Got the Italian thing downstairs.
what time are we supposed to be there?
5:45.
5:45?
Yeah.
All right.
You got to move it.
We'll be fine. Italian American Heritage Month. All right, real quick, ordinance number 1139-2023 by Councilmember Griffin by departmental request, an emergency ordinance approving the collective bargaining agreement with the International Union of Painters and Allied Trades Districts Council 6, AFL-CIO, Local 639, to amend Section 13 of Ordinance Number 194-2021, passed March 29, 2021, as amended, relating to salaries for various classifications. Director and Assistant Director.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. President.
And tell us your name
Council.
again, your director.
What's the ordinance number, Mr. Chairman?
Oh,
1139. What's your name again, sir?
Matt Cole, Director of
Director
Human
Cole.
Resources.
Okay, go ahead. Please proceed.
So we have a total of 3 CBAs to ratify. The first here that you mentioned is the collective bargaining agreement with Local 639 Painters and Allied Trades. And this would amend respective pay band 13, and it affects a total of 6 employees.
Okay. Any questions regarding ordinance number 1139-2023? Seeing no questions, ordinance number 1139-2023 will be considered by the full body for passage tonight. Next up is ordinance number 1140-2023 by Councilmember Griffin by departmental request, an emergency ordinance approving the collective bargaining agreement with the International Association of Firefighters, Local 93, equal ARFF, and to amend Section 29 of Ordinance Number 194-2021, passed March 29, 2021, as amended, relating to salaries for various classifications. Director Cole.
Yes, Mr. President, this is to ratify the collective bargaining agreement with Local 93 ARF, which is the firefighters at the airport, and to amend the respective pay band, Section 29, and it affects 10 employees.
All right. Any questions, Councilman Michael Polinsky?
Mr. Chairman, I have not seen that until just now. What is any highlights that we should be aware of that as
In the agreements, any
Yeah.
highlights? Did you go over?
anything that jumps out at us?
Sure, through the chair, Councilman Polensek. So basically the highlights of the negotiations provided a 5% equity increase, an additional 2% base pay increase retroactive to April 1, 2022. Subsequently, there are Couple of pay scale progressions, 2% retroactive to April 1, 2023, and then finally a base pay increase of 7.9% effective April 1, 2024.
And, Mr. Chairman, they are paid out of the enterprise fund, correct?
Through the chair, yes.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You good, Mike?
That's it.
Okay, any other questions? Seeing no other questions, ordinance number 1140-2023 stands approved. Last up is ordinance number 1143-2023 by Councilmember Griffin by departmental request, an emergency ordinance approving the collective bargaining agreement with the International Local 100 AFSCME Ohio Council 8 AFL-CIO to amend Section 8 of ordinance number 194-2021 passed March 29, 2021 as amended relating to salaries for various classifications. Director.
Yes, sir, thank you. This is our final piece. This is to ratify the collective bargaining agreement for Local 100 AFSCME, which is the big one, and to amend their pay band, which is Section 8, and they have approximately 979 employees.
How many does this give us as in total of bargaining units? I think we're in our 20s now, or how many have we ratified?
Through the chair to council, 19.
19, and we have a total of 34 bargaining units, right?
31, right?
Through the chair, it's 31.
31?
Yeah.
Okay, so 19 out of the 31 after today would be ratified, and then the other 12 are the ones. But mainly all the big ones, if I'm not mistaken, have been done.
Are done.
Mr. Chair, 860 would be the next largest.
860 would be the next largest. Okay.
But
All right.
isn't CPPA still out there?
No, I thought that was done.
Through the chair to Councilman Polisic, no, CPPA is done.
But I thought the administration was coming in with some revisions.
I think there was some issue that may be going to arbitration, not sure.
Okay,
about
okay, so we'll obviously wait. Mr. Chairman, can anything that jumps out on this one?
Let me take a look.
Because obviously for the viewing public, council is prohibited by law from negotiating collective bargaining agreements. So obviously the administration's in charge.
Correct. Through the chair, Councilman Polisic, no, there's nothing too big in this. It's a standard 2% wage increases in each year of the contract and a one-time $1,000 lump sum bonus, ratification bonus.
So a total of 6% over the 3-year period.
For the main set of 56 job classifications.
Okay,
correct.
thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Seeing no other questions, ordinance number 1143-2023 stands approved. Will be heard by the full body tonight for consideration. Thank you, both of you, for coming out today. This Committee of Finance, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion is adjourned to the next call of the chair next Monday, October the 9th, and we will be convening tonight at 7 o'clock p.m. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.